Call the meeting to order. Lisa, can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Dowdy,
Present.
Vice Chair McCormick, Councilmember Esquada,
Here.
Councilmember Bender,
Here.
Councilmember Bidesdorf,
Present.
Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Hutter,
Here.
Councilmember Kaczynski, Councilmember Madole,
Here.
Councilmember Nanini,
Present.
Councilmember Killen,
Present.
Councilmember Thurman, and Councilmember Woodring. And then our ex officio officers, Heather Combs-Sally,
Here.
Mike Holmes, Gloria Chavez,
Present.
and Cheryl Ward.
Here.
Lisa, Vice Chair McCormick is excused, so is John Thurman. They are attending the Nevada Works Board meeting today, which is unfortunately on the same day. Would also like to welcome our visitors. Good morning. Thanks for coming.
Right here.
We move on to public comment. Public comment will be taken during this agenda item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this item until the matter is included on an agenda as an item on which action may be taken. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes per person. Persons making comment will be asked to begin by stating their name for the record and to spell their last name. The council chair may elect to allow additional comment, public comment, on a specific item when that agenda item is being considered. Do we have any public comment? Hearing none, we move on to item number 3, the approval of the minutes. These are the TMCC IC meeting minutes of the meeting of November 9th, 2017. The meeting minutes have been distributed. Are there any corrections? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Does anyone second the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. Item number 4, we move on to a presentation overview of the nursing program presented by Director Jody Covert. Thank you, Jody.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
So I was asked to give an overview and kind of an update on the nursing program, so I'm so excited to be here to give that to you. Thank you. So the nursing program began with the community college back in 1975, and we've been going strong ever since. We used to offer an associate of applied science, but we've currently switched to an associate of science so that students could more seamlessly transfer, articulate into a bachelor's program within the state of Nevada or wherever they choose to go. So we've been doing that for several years now, which is wonderful. Currently, we are approved by the Nevada State Board of Nursing, and we are accredited by the Accreditation Commission for Education and Nursing. So if there are any questions with that, let me hear from you. Let's see here. Capacity. Let me see here. It's nursing overview. I apologize. Let's see here. All right. So we are currently approved by the Nevada State Board of Nursing, and we are accredited by the Accreditation Commission for the Education in Nursing, which is national accreditation. If nursing students coming from a school are not nationally accredited, they cannot sit for the national licensing exam. So we've been accredited for many years, and we are due for our next self-study in spring of 20. So even though it's 2 years away, we are feverishly working on our self-study write-up right now, which is a lot of work, but we have a great team, so we're working on that currently. Our capacity currently, we accept 32 students in the fall and 32 students in the spring. Our students do not go through the summer. We feel strongly, the faculty, that our students kind of need that decompression time during the breaks in the summer, and kind of anecdotally through the students, they agree with us. In addition, clinical spots are very, very limited in the community. We utilize all the hospitals here in Reno, but we also use Northern Nevada in Sparks, and we also go to Carson Tahoe Hospital down in Carson City. We don't go out of state or anything like that, like some other schools in the back east do, just because of articulation agreements with the hospitals and things like that. We have 132 students currently in the program. That number obviously is not 32 each semester. We do bring students back if they do have medical issues or personal issues, things like that, so that we can get them back in so that they can graduate in a timely manner. We are planning to increase to each cohort another 8 students. So that would be another, we'll have 40 students each semester that we will be admitting. We were just approved for that through the Educational Advisory Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Nevada State Board of Nursing, and I will be going to the board meeting in March to have it fully approved by the board, and then I have my substantive change letter ready for our national accreditation body. And so I have to have that, all those approvals done before we can actually implement the changes. But with 80 to 100 applications per cycle, I don't think we're going to have any problem filling those spots. So, and the reason that we have the numbers that we have is the State Board of Nursing mandates that when we take our students to clinical, each faculty member, and it has to be a master's or higher prepared faculty member, only have 8 students with them. So it's a 1-to-8 ratio anytime we're in the clinical setting. In addition, over the years, the nursing programs have all collaborated to utilize the space that's in the clinical setting, and so TMCC is only able to use Tuesdays and Wednesdays in the clinicals, and so we are limited to, you know, a 24-hour period on those 2 days and then some Saturdays. So the clinical space has definitely been an issue. Any questions on the capacity or anything? All right. So our success rates. So we track our success rates through each cohort that we have each semester, and also our national accreditation body, and as well as the state board mandates that we do this as well. So we look at 3 things, or we track 3 things. We track a lot of things. We have a lot of data, but 3 things that we must report to our accreditation body is our retention rate, our job placement rate, and then our NCLEX pass rate. And our NCLEX pass rate is calculated only on first-time takers. So let's say we had a student who was unsuccessful that first time. They do not count in our pass rates at all. So it's only those students when they take it the first time. So retention is measured for the nursing programs at 150% of the length of the program. So that's 6 semesters. That gives students an opportunity to have an unsuccessful semester or stop out for a semester or 2, depending, you know, medical reasons, things like that. So we only measure, we look at 4th semester, but we look at our 6th semester retention. Does everybody understand that? And then our job placement rate is determined by our faculty. And we have set that at 75%, although I think we should probably increase it. We actually decreased it to 75 in 2008 when the market took a downturn and some of our graduates weren't getting jobs immediately. We're back up to about 95 to 100% now, though, so that's good. And then our NCLEX pass rates, and that must be higher than 80% per calendar year. And that's just kind of a bright line. We have to get that or higher. So our current retention rate is 83%. National average is anywhere, it's about 70 to 73% average. I've seen some programs down in as low as 45 to 50% retention. And our job placement rate for last year was 91%. It's interesting, it would have been higher if we couldn't, we had several students, not several, I'll say 4, that didn't want to get a job yet, so they've taken time off to travel the world and things like that. So they are included in this as well. But everybody who wanted a job got a job, which is fabulous. Some of our students in our December cohort had 3 job offers, which was fabulous. So they're wonderful. And our 3-year average NCLEX pass rate is 92%. So we're doing very well. I believe the 2017 national ADN pass rate was about 83%, so we're doing well. Yeah. All right. Concerns and issues. Clinical placement definitely is an issue, limited spots. Like I said, we have a 1-to-8 ratio, and we can only utilize the facilities on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So we do a little bit of creative scheduling with that. But we're making it work, and I think with the 40 students enrollment, we'll be fine with that. And then recruitment and retention of qualified faculty. As probably everybody knows, as a new grad, our grads are making somewhere between $65,000 and $75,000, depending on where they're working. And so getting master's prepared faculty is very difficult. It's expensive and time consuming to go back and get your master's degree. And then I think nurses are kind of disillusioned thinking that teaching is an easy endeavor, and it's not. I mean, it's probably the hardest job I've done. I love it, but it is hard, and so we do have a hard time, I think, across the country retaining really good qualified faculty. However, I will say we are lucky here. We were down to 5 full-time faculty, including myself. We were back up to 10. We lost one of our family this last semester, and so we're currently hiring 3 new faculty. So we should be up to 12 full-time faculty, and then we have 13 part-time faculty who have been with us for a long time. So we really have a fabulous team. So I really do feel confident in the rotations and the teaching that our students are getting. So we're lucky that way. And then again, space issues here in the Health Science Center. This building is humongous, and we've already outgrown the space. We don't even have enough space for extra classes or tutoring sessions, things like that, outside of our own class time. So we are doing some creative scheduling here in the Health Science Center as well, so that we can have additional time with our students. So that's my quick overview. Any questions for me? Yes.
It's a question, but it's also a clarification. Every nursing program that I've worked with has had the same problem, and I wonder if we have it too, and that is that once in a while you'll get a student who waits a year after they graduate to take the NCLEX, and they tend to not pass on the first time, and then that brings 100% down to a 91%.
Right.
Do we have that problem occasionally as well at TMCC?
So since I've been here in 2004, we've had 2 students that have done that, and they both failed it.
Yeah.
Yes, they did, absolutely. We actually have 2 students right now who graduated in December, and they both are traveling the world right now and haven't taken it, even though I strongly encouraged them.
Right.
But we've had 13 graduates take the test from our December cohort, and they've all passed, so thank
fabulous.
heavens. But yes, you're right, the further that they get out,
Yeah.
the lower their chances are of passing. Yes. All right. Yes.
With the need for family medicine in the rurals, how's the job market for nurses in the rurals?
Oh, it's booming. It is absolutely booming. It's just hard to get the nurses to go there and want to stay there. And Great Basin College does a fabulous job retaining their nurses out in the rurals, and so they have satellite nursing programs or satellite classes going on, Winnemucca and Elko, and so they are pushing. But again, it's a space issue there as well, and faculty. Dr. Donnelly, who is the director for GBC, has a serious issue trying to retain faculty. So same with physicians, it runs over into nursing as well.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
I understand what clinical placement is, but it's not clear to me exactly what causes the limitations you're talking about.
So there are several nursing programs in the area. We also have a proprietary school who is increasing enrollment, let's say, kind of unchecked, if you will, and so it's hard for us to even expand into any other areas. Western Nevada College and Orvis and then TMCC have always worked together collaboratively, and so we've kind of managed our enrollment, spoken with each other, kind of collaborated together, saying, I'll take this spot if I give you this spot, and it's not always the case with the additional school in the mix. So.
Excuse me. Do you
Yes.
have any sense of how many actually go on to UNR to get their bachelor's? How many
A lot of our students go on. It's hard for me to get the data except anecdotally when I see them in the clinical setting. finances are an issue for a lot of our students coming out of the program, and so we have an articulation, we've always had an articulation agreement with UNR, but we have kind of handshake agreements with Boise State University, and then GBC in Elko, and also Nevada State College. And so our NWSN programs are all online essentially, and so wherever our students can go, I encourage them. Boise State has really been pushing to get our students, and so they come to our campus. In fact, they'll be here next week. Every single semester they're coming and trying to get our students, and I'm signing forms for them to be duly enrolled. They're a bit different because they don't require that our students have already graduated and have a 3.0 and have work experience. They want them in the program so that they can get out as soon as they can with their bachelor's degree. And our goal, I'll be honest with you, is hopefully to offer an RN-to-BSN program here on our campus. It is the wave of the future. And the BSN entry to practice, I had faculty when I was in nursing school, which was a few years ago, talking about bachelor's entry to practice, which is the program I was in, but they were speaking about it in the 60s. And so it is coming, and it is going to get here. And so we need to be prepared before it comes, and then our students are left out in the cold without a job.
So you would get a bachelor's here?
Yes, that is my intent. Our faculty, we want that. So,
Yeah.
yes. Hi, Marisa.
Hi, Jody. Do you solely use GPA for entry into nursing school? Or
We use the overall GPA, and then we also use our HESI admission score. So that tests grammar, vocabulary, reading comprehension, their math, and then the biology and anatomy. So it's kind of a 50-50. We talked about doing interviews, we talked about doing essays, and I've spoken with other directors who have implemented interviews, and they saw no difference in the caliber of student.
Oh, really?
It's interesting. Yeah, they actually had more issues with the students who they thought were really stellar interviewers. So
Oh, interesting.
yes, it is. But we always are trying to find better ways. But I'll be honest with you, I think our students, we really have some excellent students here. We are so blessed. So, yeah.
Kari?
So a couple of things. One is that it is very likely that in the next few months, the College of Southern Nevada will be requesting of the Board of Regents approval to offer the first BSN offered at essentially a 2-year college in the state of Nevada. So I'm thankful because if that goes well for CSN, they are paving the way for the rest of us. The other thing too, from a fiscal standpoint, the last 2 years of a nursing BSN are actually the years that can do a lot to help pay for the first 2 years, because it's a pretty low overhead compared with the first 2 years, and yet community colleges don't get the benefit of balancing the budget with those 300, 400 level years. So from this fiscal standpoint, it just makes sense that community colleges with fantastic faculty and excellent students are allowed to go forward. So I'm really excited about the possibility. And then I just wanted to add that I've worked also with a lot of nursing programs in my career, and not always in a positive way, but that's history. This nursing program is absolutely outstanding, and I think one of the things that I really appreciate is their compassion for students. I've worked with a couple of colleges that if a student had to drop out for a medical issue, too bad, so sad, you're done. You know, you start from the beginning. The way this nursing faculty has opted to show care and compassion, but yet maintain extremely high rigor is really commendable, and I'm so proud to be working with you.
Thank you.
So thank you, Jody, for all the work that you do for TMCC.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jody, thank you. Great work. I have one last question. Kind of following up on Joe's question. Do you see similar income potential, demand, opportunities, possibilities for somewhat adjacent programs for occupational therapy, for physical therapy? The reason why I'm asking is, comparing our region to other regions, especially up and down the East Coast, where you have this high density of, let's say, nursing homes and assisted senior citizen living. Our median age in the area is relatively low. So our population is relatively young. However, over time, obviously that changes. So we have an aging population, and just in the interest of getting ready for the demand with nurses, with the nursing program, but also with, adjacent programs, occupational, especially physical therapy for geriatrics. Do you see similar trends in the other fields?
Similar trends with regards to increasing.
To demand, income potential,
Right.
education, availability of talent?
Well, with physical therapy, I think that they have kind of cornered the market because they've mandated that they have a doctorate as entry to practice, so they've really severely limited their capability to put physical therapists into practice. So I'm actually friends with several of the PTs that work in all the facilities, and they need physical therapists. But, and there's not a lot of DPT programs across the country. That's the other issue. So, but I think there is going to be a need for OT, PT, you know, our physician's assistant program hopefully will be, you know, coming into fruition here soon at UNR. And so I think overall, I think we're going to be needing a lot of the ancillary or adjacent.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And the hospitals are growing. I mean, hospitals are short-staffed. I know Renown is losing about 100 nurses every year, they say. And so, you know, going, I don't know where, but I think that's the same for every other field.
Thank you.
I think that answered your
You do
question.
great work, Jody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We move on to item number 5. That's the President's update. 3 subtopics: the update on articulation efforts, secondly, the website redesign update, and third, capital projects update.
So good morning again, everyone. The first thing that I want to mention is notice the new agenda format. I'm very appreciative to our newer chair, Elmar Dabi, for trying to think through with me how best to structure an agenda. And I must give credit to Elmar for coming up with the construct that we look at: community directions, student directions, industry, employer directions, and TMCC directions. And I think it really punctuates the reality that the IAC lives to help the college set directions and who these directions benefit. So I just wanted to express my thanks for that, and we'll see how it goes.
Thank you. Exactly. We don't know yet if it works.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. So a few updates. So one of the first update is articulation, and another way of saying that is articulation and transfer. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is, thanks to our new Vice Chancellor, and there will be proposed to the Board of Regents, and I think it's very likely to pass, an articulation and transfer council and an articulation and transfer ombudsman, who will be a new position that will work in the system office very closely with the Vice Chancellor for community colleges and with Vice Chancellor Crystal Abba, who works with academic affairs and curriculum and has a lot on her plate. The thing that I think is really great about this idea is, I think right now there's not enough hands on deck to really steer the most excellent relationships when it comes to transfer of credits between community colleges and universities in the state of Nevada. And it's not, and we do a good job in the state of Nevada, so please don't misunderstand. But we could do better at improving transfer options and clarifying transfer trouble spots, especially when a department at the university changes their mind about a requirement. And the time that it could take to get to the community college might be just enough time for the student to take a class that in retrospect is no longer relevant, and yet they spent their time and their money taking the class. So I wanted to share this with you because I think it's very exciting news, and it's likely to come up at the next Board of Regents meeting. I'm hearing nothing but support from the Board of Regents, so I assume that everything will go well. I think one of the things that's nice about what's happening at ENCHI now is there is sort of a system reorganization going on related to where are the areas, and this was very publicly shared at the last meeting, where are the areas where system staff are really feeling shorthanded, and what do they need in terms of resource capacity to help continuously improve the system in the state of Nevada. So that's a positive update. Website redesign update. If you could turn your attention to a handout that I believe you all received. Let's see here. It's here somewhere. Oh, let's see, I've got, I don't think 5B, TMCC IAC, and it says Drupal CMS Website Redesign Project Timeline. It kind of looks like this, okay? So, first of all, I think it's become very clear based on data analytics that one of the most important tools for a college, or any large organization for that matter, is its website. And particularly for colleges and universities, the website serves a couple of important functions. First of all, it can just help get potential students and current students the information they need to be successful. But secondly, it also is a very important recruiting tool. In fact, there is research that shows that when students are making a decision which college to choose, the top 2 things that they turn to are, what do you think? Well, when's the website? But really, even more important than number 1 is a friend. That a friend says, oh, I'm going to go to TMCC. And, oh, you should check out their website. I'm going to do this program, right? So because of this fact, it is important for colleges to invest in websites, and that's exactly what we're doing. I think that the TMCC website is really good, as it is. I really do. But I also think that it's time for a refresh, and it's time for an upgrade. The primary reason, though, that we're doing it now is the back-end coding that comes with our current website is becoming more and more difficult to navigate because it's relatively proprietary, a little old, and not easy to adjust. Moving to Drupal is really key because Drupal is an open source language. That doesn't mean it's completely free, but it does mean that figuring out coding trouble spots and coding issues is easier to do because you can literally reach out to an international community, put a question out there, and there'll be a coder who will answer it and help because it's that type of an open source back-end system. So that's probably the primary reason why we as a college have felt the need to do this now. So just as a timeline, and you can see some of the timeline pieces are already happening. They're already in implementation phase. Now we're in design phase. Development phase is occurring over the summer. Delivery phase is August, hopefully if everything goes well. Launch phase, August through October, and then post-launch follow-up and any last changes, October 2018. There will be a point in time that, I assume there'll be some feedback, and I don't know if Elena, where did she go? I don't know if you want to add to that at all, if you're all right with that? I certainly am. Yeah, do you want to add a little bit about that? Actually, I think you covered it. Oh, okay, great. All right, good. So look forward to that. Hopefully it'll be a wonderful website that's not just refreshed from the front end, but that has a much easier back end so that individuals who manage web pages can have a much easier time doing so. And then the last update on your agenda relates to capital projects updates. And if you don't have a handout, there's more on the back table, but it looks like this. Thank you, Jim New, for putting this together. When I looked at it, my heart kind of goes like this because pitter patter, there is a lot going on right now on our campus related to capital. So as you can see, we're finishing the final phase of Pennington. It's $600,000, which sounds like a lot, but it's things like doors, and I mean, it's things that you might, I hate to say it, but you might barely see it, but it will definitely finish out the project. The Learning Commons renovation, that is one that's fairly obvious to see. The first floor was pretty much complete. Phase 2 is the second floor. And I will summarize this simply by saying it was a very collaborative effort. A lot of people were involved in the planning phase. The purpose is both function and form. So we are locating some areas of the college that fit much better with the Learning Commons and the library model, and moving out some of the areas like human resources that are really hard to find and that don't make a lot of sense for the second floor in the library. So there's a lot of moving parts, but we think it'll be really beautiful when it's done. So, and I'm thankful to all of the TMCC staff and faculty who have assisted with this project. The Human Resource Office will move, they'll move into 211, which is where the professional development area is located. Professional development moves to the second floor of the library because that's kind of becoming a hub for information regarding not just learning, but teaching. And Kathy Brewster, our professional development guru, she does a lot of work with part-time faculty and some full-time faculty. So it'll all be housed in that library. So the notion that learning isn't just for students, it's for faculty and administrators too. So the next one, Dandini Sierra Lobby Study and Coffee Bar. This is Jim New's dream. I can't wait to see it. And that is, we noticed that in that lobby, students love to be there, and yet, and partly because now that the first floor library is so friendly and the furniture is so great, that gets packed, and then students kind of overflow more so into the lobby where the coffee bar is. So now we want to take that lobby and turn it into a really hip, fun place because they're already using it. Now it's just bringing it to today's standard for decor. So let's get back to the page. The president's office is getting a refreshment. Yay! You know what? We keep putting it off. We keep putting it off. We keep putting it off. Part of the cost here is the common suite area in the president's office is one of the last areas on campus that doesn't have drop ceilings, which means that whenever there's an HVAC issue in that corridor, it's really hard to repair it. So part of the job is to take out the old ceiling and put in a drop ceiling that's easier to access by facilities crew. And then and we're really concerned about our lobby. It's just looking very old and dated. And so we're all looking forward to that. Meadowwood CNA relocation, this one's very exciting. And and I'll just take the next two together, the dental expansion, Adopt-A-Vet. This was all because of help from the Pennington Foundation, who have generously contributed the 1.28 and the 365 so that we could move CNA to Meadowood and expand our dental hygiene and dental assisting programs specifically to assist not just the students, but the veterans in our community who get service through Adopt-A-Vet. So it's really exciting, and I think people are delighted that it is happening. Then Dini Sports and Health Complex. The architect has been officially selected. Jim Mickey, Archidemesia Architects, got the job. We're super excited to continue to work with Jim on this project. We had our first kickoff meeting, and I think the project is following a very strict timeline, so hopefully nothing goes awry, and we will keep you informed. And just a reminder, that's a soccer field that will be large enough to have professional soccer played on it, and also large enough to do youth camps in the summer and invite the youth community in through the soccer program. It also includes a recreational walking and running track just for fun, and then a health club that's located on campus that will also have a basketball court, regulation size, so look forward to an IAC meeting on the new basketball court, because that really will be a nice place to have our meetings. It'll include group exercise classes, double the space for weight room and equipment and things like that. And again, just a very exciting project. The students they can't wait. Every time I talk to students, they're like, yeah, we can't wait. So anyway, the one we're moving a little slowly on this one, but I think in the end it's going to be a wonderful project, and that's the EATS building. I hope that by our next meeting, I will have a completely done case of support. It keeps going through draft after draft after draft, but we're getting closer. The exciting thing here is that at the last Board of Regents meeting, we requested $1 million from the operating pool surprise fund release money to begin serious architectural planning documents on the EATS building, and that request was approved. So now we have $1 million to work with to really get going on this building. We are exploring a P3 partnership very tentatively, and I'll say more at the next meeting. So Again, that building will include entrepreneurship, hospitality, and tourism. That'll be the first program of its kind in Northern Nevada. The TMCC Theater and an expansion of Sierra Culinary Arts Institute, and hopefully we can carve out some extra offices for faculty because we're real short on faculty offices. So anyway, the other thing is we're also exploring modular classrooms for this location to house our paramedic and EMT, but this is a work in progress. We're still evaluating all of our options. Parking lot, deferred maintenance. The other $1 million we got from the surprise fund and money was $1 million to fix our parking lots at the Dandini campus. So we're stoked about that. Vista building, boilers and central plant replacement, 5% completion. We're targeting August 2008. Look at the price tag. Oh, for boilers that you don't see, but it is what it is. Red Mountain roof replacement, server room upgrades. And then we've got prioritized unfunded projects that you can see here. And this doesn't include making the campus ready for earthquakes, which would bring the total of unfunded prioritized deferred maintenance projects to about $33 million. Something that's not going to happen anytime soon, but it is on our radar. So I'll close with a couple of short updates that just came in this week. So this just in. On our accreditation, this college had one outstanding recommendation from the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities, which is our primary accrediting body recognized by the federal government. And that recommendation was Standard 2C9, Eligibility Standard 12, which relates to general education outcomes and assessment. And basically, the NWCCU visited us and they said, you know what, you need to fix this. And you need to fix it now. Probably should have been fixed yesterday, so fix this. Happy to report that I received a letter this week from the NWCC stating that we are in compliance. We did show sufficient progress on Standard 2C9, Eligibility Standard 10, which relates to general education outcomes and its proper assessment of those outcomes. So I'm thankful to the faculty, staff, and especially to Melissa Dedman, for really stepping up and getting it together, writing the report to tell our story, and yay, we're done with that. So it's great news. I'll also be announcing it at the Faculty Senate meeting, and we'll get an official note out to the entire campus community probably Monday of next week. So the other thing that happened, and I'm saving one of the best things for last, and you may have seen the press release, but the Department of Labor apprenticeship grant from the state did come through. And here are some excerpts of this, because this will affect hundreds, thousands of students in the future. And this is a relatively new model because the college is now a recognized apprenticeship provider, which is kind of unusual. Usually there's a middleman, so to speak. It's either an industry middleman or a labor union middleman. In this new model, TMCC is saying, we want to be the provider of the education. We want it to be directly through us as opposed to articulating credit through us. So there were more than 600 new apprenticeship positions approved by Nevada State Apprenticeship Council, and these positions are paid, by the way. Members of the State Apprenticeship Council voted to approve the applications of a co-sponsored program with 5 occupations at the February 6th Apprenticeship Council meeting. So the opportunities will be in high-demand industries such as manufacturing, healthcare, which is a really nice addition to the model, and workforce development sectors. Apprentices are provided structured on-the-job training and mentoring while also being compensated under a progressive merit-based earn-as-you-learn wage system. With today's approval by the State Apprenticeship Council, TMCC will serve as a program sponsor with employers such as Panasonic, Renown Health, and others in the following occupations: industrial maintenance mechanic, CNC machine operator, production operator, and certified nursing assistant. So anyway, I think that's all my good news for today, even though there's more that I'll share with you at our next meeting.
A lot
Any
of good news.
questions? Okay, great.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank you for the praise that you gave me earlier. However, I want to move much of the credit to Vice Chancellor McCormick. She and I sat down after the meeting in November, after the most recent meeting, and try to figure out how we can have more consistency in our agendas, throughout the agenda, in what is being covered, what topics are being covered, and make sure that that all stakeholders in what we are doing in our work are identified and their interests are adequately represented and addressed. So what I want to explain very briefly to make sure that there's no future confusion is why we came up with community directions, student directions, industry and employer directions, and TMCC directions, and what we try to accommodate at the same time. Vice Chancellor McKinnon was kind enough to share the NG, the strategic plan goals, and these goals are as follows. The Board of Regents issued these 5 goals: access, success, close the achievement gap, workforce, and research. So in detail, number 1, these are 5 goals. Number 1, access, increase participation in post-secondary education. Number 2, success, increase student success. Number 3, close the achievement gap, especially among underserved student populations. Workforce, number 4, collaboratively address the challenges of the workforce and industry education needs of Nevada. And lastly, number 5, co-develop solutions to the critical issues facing 21st century Nevada and raise the overall research profile. So as you see in the agenda, Vice Chair McCormick and I are of the opinion that our 4 major stakeholders are the community, the students, industry, employers, and TMCC. And what you see underneath is our way of accommodating the NG strategic goals into the TMCC IAC meeting agenda, so we can really cover both NG's strategic goals and our stakeholder coverage. So that's number 1. Number 2, what you will also see towards the second half of the agenda is item number 12, the IAC council member takeaways. And I just want to make you aware of that up front so that there's no surprise later on. What I would very much welcome and appreciate is if we very briefly, 2 minutes per person max, go around the table and share our takeaways so that we, I wouldn't say that we are otherwise passive, but this way we engage in a more active dialogue and share what we actually want to get done between now and the upcoming meeting. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, 2 minutes per person max. That said, we move on to action item number 7, the community direction. Items under this headline will address the following NG strategic plan goals. Number 1, access, and number 3, closing the achievement gap. So we're going to have a presentation by Sharon Worm on the update on the Nevada Promise Scholarship Program. Good morning, Sharon, and
Good morning.
thank you.
Thank you. I have to apologize for my voice. I'm fighting a bug, but I did want to thank you for putting this on the agenda. Thanks to many of you are actually mentors for us, and we so much appreciate that. You have a handout I'd like to just call your attention to. It's a 2-page scholarship update, Nevada Promise Scholarship Update. And first I'm going to go to the second page and just give you kind of a context of where we're at in comparison to the rest of the state. So as you can imagine, CSN had the greatest number of applicants, and this is very true to a lot of our numbers that we see for a lot of different initiatives where CSN has the majority, TMCC is the next highest, and then followed by Western Nevada College and Great Basin College, which have fairly smaller numbers. So we are currently sitting with 236 mentors, and our number of eligible students at the time we created this was 1,033. We're at about 1,030, and the reason for that is we have a couple students who've decided that they wanted to stay in Las Vegas. We have about 25 students. I should have brought water, sorry. About 25 students who are from Las Vegas, and we have staff down there today. Oh, thank you so much, thank you. staff down there today who are meeting with them. So that's great that we were able to do that. We kind of piggybacked on the ACT conference down there. So it will fluctuate just a little bit. We'll see numbers drop off. We did see, about 57% of our students actually completed their first workshop, and they have that steps that they have to take. And those steps are listed in the timeline, the future steps, on the main document. So their next step is to meet with their mentor. And so we have a lot of mentors that are already meeting. I've met with 2 of my mentees. It was great. They were both very different, which was really kind of exciting. I've got 3 more coming in tomorrow to TMCC to see me. We do have a mentor day scheduled for March 10th so that mentors don't have to do all the logistics of setting a place up to meet with them. They just have to make sure they get there. So we've got that coming up. And then they're going to be attending new student orientation, which is their next step. The FAFSA is their following step. We, when we reported originally, we had 45% of our applicants had submitted a FAFSA. We are up to 48%. So we're slowly increasing. And that's where the mentors really come in, because they just need to remind them. You need to make sure you fill out your FAFSA. We, of course, are sending them emails saying you need to meet with your mentor. You need to fill out your FAFSA. You need to do your community service. And we had a meeting of our Hispanic Serving Institution Committee on campus yesterday, and we were reported there that 51% of our current students in the current pool are Hispanic, which is really great for the college. I don't want to go through this whole handout. You have all the information. Are there any questions that I can answer? Yeah.
Sharon, you said 236 mentors at this point?
Correct.
Did I get that number right? And just a little bit over 1,000 students?
Yes.
So we're looking at a 1-to-4 ratio roughly?
Yep.
What is the ideal, what's our target? What's the sweet spot as far as the ratio is concerned? Because this ratio looks very good. It sounds
I feel
better
pretty
than I
good
thought.
about it,
Yeah.
actually, because the maximum number of mentees per mentor is 10. That's defined in the statute. So we're really happy with a 4-to-1 ratio. We were very nervous. It's a new program, so we weren't sure if we were going to be able to get enough. We didn't know if we'd get enough applicants. We didn't know if we'd have enough mentors. So we're just thrilled at the outflowing of support, not only from the community, but from our TMCC community as well. We have a number of mentors sitting in here who are meeting with their students. So we've been very fortunate. And I should say, we were the first college, thanks to Dr. Hilgerson, to add a staff member to actually be able to support the program. CSN added one a few months later. Great Basin and Western are doing it sort of other duties as assigned with their current staffing.
So we have a lot of capacity still among the mentors. It sounds like.
Yeah,
What are we going to do to increase the students NT population to utilize the kind of excess capacity among the mentors?
Great question. So we're actually starting to recruit for next year already. We've got a number of, we work in the high schools all the time, so we're letting the current juniors know that next year they need to do this. We've already got our workshops for the fall set up for them and scheduled, and we'll be going out to our current mentors and, once we figure out who's enrolled, because they go through all these steps. The last one, of course, is to enroll. And depending on how many mentees that the current mentors have, we'll be asking them, would you be interested in taking on a few more, as well as recruiting. We do have that we think we're going to need to get up to about 300 for next year. So we are going to ask for our mentors' help in recruiting as well.
Oh, I just want to add that this program is based after a Tennessee Promise Scholar program. And one of the things that we sent a team to Tennessee to learn about it, and it was clear that the optimal number for mentors is 5 or less. The fact that Nevada statute says 10 does allow flexibility, especially for people who have a lot of time, right? But that's not necessarily the best approach to make the most out of the mentoring. Would you agree, Sharon?
Yes, yeah, it's, I don't know, do any of you want to speak to that who have already met with your students? Anybody on the IAC? Put you on the spot. It's a heavy lift if you work full-time and you've got, family and you've got other obligations, and then you're going to have to, you're going to add on these meetings. The great news is that, you only have to meet with them one time, although personally, I think to really do a great job as a mentor, it's constant follow-up with them, because they'll forget, they're in their senior year, of their second semester of their senior year, so they've got a lot going on. They just need to be reminded frequently. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you have an idea what the split is with the students that are local, Reno, Sparks, Carson, Lake Tahoe versus Vegas and some other areas outside of our MSA?
Of the 1,030 students, we have 25 in Las Vegas.
So we've got a potential market to capture there to get more people here.
Yeah, the big concern though, and those are a couple of people who have dropped off, is housing. We don't have dorms. They don't know this coming out of college or coming out of high school. They don't know anything about TMCC. They just think it's great to get out of Las Vegas. So, they're worried about housing. They're worried about where, how to kind of handle all of that when they're out on their own. So I don't know if we'll see a lot more. Our capacity for the current community is so much greater that we definitely would like to beef up our current number of seniors coming out of the school district.
Are there any other questions? Joe?
I'd just like to say that I can't wait to see the persistence data once this cohort gets cooking, because as the research would indicate in student persistence, it's that personal relationship that makes more difference than just about anything else. And I think that the mentoring component of this program is absolutely fantastic. I think these kids are going to be very successful.
Yeah, and that's part of what is defined in the statute, is to report that. So that'll be reported every year. Of course, we won't know, we'll know after the first semester, but we won't know for a couple years. We do have a really great model at TMCC where first-time, full-time freshmen are required to see an academic advisor 3 times. And so these students, because they have to be full-time to receive the promise, already go into that cohort. So we have a lot of built-in services for students in addition to the mentoring that's going to also help them to be successful.
Good.
Thank you very much, Sharon.
Thank you.
One last comment to the point that you made earlier. It helps so much not just to meet once, but to follow up and actually help them. It's a while ago that I was a teenager, but the observation that I had with my 2 mentees, which surprised me and just made me admire and respect them even more, was that both of them are working, as they shared with me, Saturdays and Sundays every week. So these young students have 7-day weeks. This is much more than the many adults do. One is working at a bakery Saturdays, Sundays. The other one is helping out at an auto body shop Saturdays and Sundays. And just realizing that made me want to help them so much more. So if you have to send another reminder sometimes that you don't get that email response right away,
Right.
it just helps you maintain
out
that
by
patience
phone.
with them, because it helps us empathize with their situation. It's a very admirable. The student that I've met, the mentees, they are just the best of the best.
And we are, to that point, we are utilizing our text messaging system to communicate with them as well, because we know that students really respond
Yeah.
to texting. So,
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Sharon?
thank you. I'll wipe this down for the next person so you don't get me. I brought my own wipes.
Thank you, Sharon. We move on to item number 7B. So that's still under community direction. Item B, 7B, is a discussion regarding the participation by TMCC and the TMCC IAC in the upcoming legislative session, to include but not limited to information regarding setting priorities and opportunities to testify. The reason for this item, I had an opportunity to meet with the IAC chair of CSN, with Ms. Nancy Brune, and she actually, so this is I cannot take any credit for this point. She actually brought this up and said that they are very, not concerned, but very interested in increased participation in the legislative session. So I discussed that with Vice Chair McCormick, with President Hilgerson, and we believe that this is a very good idea. I don't have an exact action plan or idea how we're going to do this, but we're going to get a memo by Dr. Delpy, which is going to be, Dr. Hilgerson is going to fill in for Dr. Delpy, and we open that up to discussion, for brief discussion after that, because we welcome your input in this topic.
So great. So currently, NSHE is starting to plan a proposed legislative priority list for the Board of Regents. And it is anticipated that the Board of Regents will begin kind of working through that in April and May in preparation for the June Board of Regents meeting. And so any input that you can provide as an IAC board, and then Elmar and I also take that to the Community College Committee where IACs are represented, is really helpful. There are some parameters though, and so to sort of frame how we can move forward, in your packet there's a memo that Kyle Dalpy has provided just as a nice reminder. And these are the key points from NSHE Government Affairs meeting. This meeting was held January 26th. So NSHE will have a message of unity, one system, one voice, which I think is really important. What that means is the opportunity for IACs to influence the agenda is now. It's not during the legislative session. It's trying to make sure that our Board of Regents and the Chancellor and the system staff understand what we need, and that's happening now. The board sets the agenda as things come up. They will be discussed before an official board position is taken. Institutions are the best to speak for campuses, but there is a need to coordinate with system staff. And again, I think these are valid requests from NSHE. We are very fortunate that the leader of the NSHE's lobby arm is an amazing woman, Constance. I want to say Brooke, because I think I got the right last name. I know her as Constance. She's really easy and fun to work with. So it is important, though, that all of that is even just a simple note to let Constance know, oh, a legislator is visiting our campus. NSHE staff will be part of the supervision and evaluations with dotted lines for government affairs staff and presidents. So if I mess up as a president, I will hear about it from NSHE, and that's okay with me. I won't mess up. Outside lobbying contracts, and this is more pertinent to universities, not so much community colleges, but there is a need to centralize, and so NSHE has hired the Porter Group in Washington, D.C. to lobby on behalf of the system. All federal activity must go through Constance Brooks, there's her name, state level, looking at a lobby contract now, and no outside contracts without prior approval. Again, that's more pertinent to the universities. All visits to Carson City and Washington, D.C. must be communicated to Vice Chancellor Brooks and Chancellor Riley. And typically what happens is Constance reaches out to us and says, oh, Karen, can you come and testify on this topic on this day? But if it's working the other way, then I just make sure that Constance and her team are alerted. Alerts must be sent to the board and system staff when elected officials are on campus at events, and we use Regents Alert, and Lisa assists me with those. And the board will have a meeting once per month during session next year to be able to take positions and review legislation as needed. So I hope that's helpful to kind of understand how the process flows for the next year and a half. So.
Thank you, Dr. Helgerson. We move, are there any questions to item 7?
Could I ask one question? Just a question of clarification on this. When they said all visits to Carson City and Washington, D.C. must be communicated. I don't know, but I'm sure others have communicated with legislators on many issues, with a lot of things going through Congress right now. We're a small state. A lot of us know our legislators and our senators, and we communicate with them. Is this, if I communicate, you know, if we have somebody in their office, I'm in their office, are we not to speak on
I
How the
think.
hell is that? I
Yeah.
just don't want to,
Right.
have a senator, call NSHE and say, get this woman out of my office.
Right.
As I'm pounding and screaming community colleges or everything.
I'm going to try to answer.
Could we have
Is that-
clarification?
Yeah, I'm going to try my best, but remember, I've only been through one session. So,
Right.
so, and it might be worthwhile to have a conversation with Constance but let me give it
Clarify,
let me
especially
give it an
at
attempt.
the federal
I-
level. I
yeah.
understand here, but I was not sure if we're, some of us do communicate with our
Right.
congressional delegation on things, and there is something coming through. Is it not appropriate for us to speak to that?
So I think the rules are going to be applied more strictly to people who work for NSHE, like me and,
Right.
and Kyle. And but that said, I think what we want to do is try to set the agenda now so that if there's a topic that's on the agenda, then you should be very free to support that topic with the legislators that you know. And I would suggest it's probably not necessary to send an alert every time you do so. I think, so for example, let me give you a good example. It became very clear that all of the NSHE presidents supported pro-DACA legislation when the chancellor sent us a note that says, do you want to all support pro-DACA legislation? And all of us said, oh yes, of course we do. So that was sort of our permission then to go out and do whatever means necessary, well, within, professional boundaries, to support pro-DACA legislation. I think where it has become dicey in the past is when presidents will do what I would call an end run. And by the way, it's happened in every state I've worked in, so this is human behavior. So hypothetically, let's say NSHE comes up with a capital list of projects that they would like the state to support. And we have a capital project that we would like the state to support, and that is a shared science building with the Desert Research Institute and TMCC located at Dandini. I would have put it on the agenda today, but we are soliciting help from a third partner, another NSHE college, but we haven't had that phone conversation yet. But let's say that project ends up on the planning request list, and what we are asking for of NSHE is $5 million to put that on the legislative request list to plan this joint use science facility with Desert Research Institute and TMCC. So I'd love the IAC to say, yeah, that's an awesome idea, right? Let's say that ends up on the list, and let's say it's top 3, and there's only 3 items that NSHE's going to bring to the legislatures for those planning dollars. If a president then goes and starts talking to legislators about a new building that's not on the list at all, that's what NSHE does not want to see happen, right? So that's the concern. So we want to try to get on the same page as soon as we can, and then I think we can actively advocate for those items. But also Constance is so fun. She's a lovely person, and this is a great question for her. So I'll make sure I reach out to her in the next week or 2 and have that conversation, because I could see where it might be confusing for some of you who interact with legislators quite frequently on a variety of topics. So.
Thank you.
Karen, I have a question. So you had mentioned that it's important that we start meeting now to influence the legislative session when it gets here.
Yeah.
So will we be kept informed, like with regards to what's going on and where that direction is headed, and provide input if we need to? Because right in this, it says the meetings won't start until the session.
Well, what'll happen is the Board of Regents, and by the way, this is my first round of this, because I wasn't here when they did this in preparation for the last session. Mm-hmm. But what's happening is the presidents already, we gave a presentation, and we had this long list of things on the presentation. And now the Board of Regents has that list. And I'm thinking, we should have brought that list. Why didn't we think that?
We should have at the last meeting.
Oh, we did. You had it at the last meeting. Oh, that's good. That makes sense. Okay. And so now that I think the goal is that we want to try to get the items that are important to TMCC on the Board of Regents list, because once it makes, and they're going to decide that this June. And they're discussing it in April and May and June. So, and I wonder if there's a way we can. Sure.
Lisa Farmer for the record.
It can, yeah.
We have Kyle acts as our government affairs kind of liaison.
Right.
And we have a listserv that goes out anytime there's any initiative that TMCC or MG is considering or asks for feedback on. We'd be happy to add your email addresses to that listserv. That way when it goes out, you'll be able to provide input back to the college.
Yeah.
That would be helpful. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other thoughts, questions, ideas?
And I
Go
just
ahead,
have a
please.
question. So it's actually been a couple of weeks since I've looked at the list, but I assume that when you saw the list at the last meeting, that you were in general very supportive of the items on that list, right? But if you're not, please, and just a reminder, our top capital project was the request to do $5 million in planning money for a shared science community solutions facility located at Dandini in partnership with DRI. So that's the number one on the capital side. The other items that were on that list include trying to have flexibility on and more dollars for faculty compensation. And the request that we put in was around, I want to say $380,000 for TMCC, so that we could use those dollars and have a flexible way to reward faculty who are currently here through a rank advancement system that faculty are already working on and engaged in. We are also, I'm very concerned about our part-time faculty salaries. I think it would be great to get some dollars for that type of salary adjustment. I'm trying to think of the highlights, and I don't know if Jim New wants to speak a little bit on that too, but but we were sleeping with this list a month ago, and now pieces of it have left my head. So, but please.
Mine too, I apologize.
Right, yeah.
I can look it up if you'd like me to.
Okay.
Anyway. Maybe after break, we can return to it, or.
Sure.
I'm sure
Thank
it's-
you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Helgerson. We move on to item number 8, the student direction. Just for the record, items under this heading will address the NG strategic plan goal number 2, which is success. Elena Bubnova is going to present an overview of NG's dashboard and TMCC's enrollment dashboard. Good morning, Elena, and thank you.
Good morning, and welcome to the beautiful Redfield campus here. I'm glad that we got to have a meeting here. So every time I'm here, I look at the beautiful furnishings, and I'm thinking, oh, this is TMCC too. We've done a great job. So this is a beautiful campus. Elena Bubnova for the record. And the president, please feel free to go like this. This is one of my favorite topics. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about the data today. Everyone had coffee, right? So we're good to go. I think this is a wonderful idea to put something like this on the agenda, just to kind of orient you guys a little bit to the wealth of information that's literally at your fingertips. And I'll kind of spend a little bit of time today, and I apologize, it's a little hard to see, but the idea is for me to just kind of give you a quick tour, and then you'll know what you're doing tonight at home, looking at the beautiful dashboards, right? And Lisa and I will kind of try to do it together. It'd be a little easy if I could kind of click through it myself, but so we'll be going back and forth and see how it works. So I want to feature 2 things today. One is the Nevada System of Higher Education Institutional Research Office, and kudos to them, have done a tremendous amount of work over the last I'd say couple of years of corralling a lot of data that's available and putting it into a format that is very easy to navigate, very user-friendly, and really fun to look at. So anyone can literally go there, and within a couple of minutes, you'll know your way around, and you'll have access instantly to a wealth of information about every single Nevada institutions, and certainly including TMCC. The NSHE dashboards are powered by several different data sources. One of them is institutional data that comes directly from each one of our institutions. We provide every semester kind of a set of different data snapshots that then power this particular research analytics here from the system office. They also use things like IPEDS, Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data Systems, I think is what it stands for, which is also something that's a national data source that every institution pretty much that receives federal financial aid is mandated to provide sort of a set of standard reports that are very consistently done across different institutions. So you are really looking at pretty much apples to apples comparisons. And we submit that to the federal data sources. So those kinds of data sources are mostly static, so it's not dynamic, real live data. Some of that data is a couple years old, depending on the topic at hand. For example, when we're looking at graduation rates, obviously we need to give students a few years kind of to graduate before we go back and calculate graduation rate. So I want to show you a couple of different things today. We obviously don't have time to go through every single dashboard here. What you're looking at is the awards conferred, or basically degrees and certificates issued by every institution. This is the data for all NSHE institutions, and you can see the trend lines as far as the number of awards issued. You can see, I wonder if I can do this. You can see, no, I'm not going to use this. So then you can see awards broken down by ethnicity over there in the middle, and then awards by type of degree, how many awards were Certificate of Achievement versus Associate degree. And this is the snapshot for the entire system, all institutions combined. Lisa, if we can click on TMCC and bring up TMCC data, please. So this is our data for Truckee Meadows Community College. You can see that we've been consistently going up in the number of awards that we issue, which is great. So we have a lot of initiatives that are really very laser focused on completion. So you can see that we are slowly but surely looking at upward trends here. And then awards broken down by ethnicity and type and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how you can go back and forth between NSHE-wide data and specifically TMCC. If we could go maybe, I don't know, let's go to fall enrollment, please, which is on the right-hand side. If you go further up, yep, down, yep, thank you. So again, if we can look at TMCC, you can kind of see that you can see where the recession hit and we had a bunch of people coming back to college, and then it sort of tapered off, and we're kind of plateauing right now, which is not too bad. We're a little bit below where we would like to be, but that's, I think it will even itself out. We have very high hopes for Nevada Promise Scholarship. That will definitely be a very good infusion of enrollments that we're looking forward to next year or in the fall. And again, so enrollment data comes directly from us. You can kind of take a look at enrollment numbers overall, broken down by ethnicity and things like that. And maybe let's take a look at graduation rates for TMCC. And this is something, again, that was a very kind of a big focus for us for a number of years now. And I think this is which one is it? Graduation rates by year. Okay, so, and this is a few years behind, but when we have an incoming freshman class, we'll look at brand new students who are here to get a degree, or they tell us that they want to get a degree. They're attending full time, and we give them 150% of the allotted time to graduate, basically. So we want to see them get through the program in a timely fashion. So if they're looking at a 2-year associate's degree, 3-year window is what we use to calculate graduation rate. And that's a fairly standard national benchmark that colleges are tracking and looking at as far as being accountable for completion and success of their students. And we have done exceptionally well in that as well. In fact, we're doing really better than anyone else, and we were invited to come and speak to CSN, our sister institution in the South, to kind of share our tricks and ideas, everything from how we clean the data and track the data to student initiatives and financial aid incentives and things like that. So that's a good area for us to to focus on. Obviously, completion is important, and this is something that we've had quite a bit of success in that we're very proud. And the last thing I want to show you on the ANSHI dashboards is the, let's see, that would be institutions and their IPADS peers. So what ANSHI has done, so you're familiar with the goals that they put together. One of the things that they asked institutions to think about it, and I believe it was last year that we went through this exercise, they asked each institution to look at and primarily looking at IPADS, that whole big, data source that we use, look at all the different institutions, find institutions that you, TMCC, consider your peers. And we've done quite a bit of sort of soul searching on campus, looked at a variety of different data points, and that's the beauty of some of these federal data sources available right now. I mean, even within the last 5 years, it's amazing how much data is available and how much standard data is available out there that allows you to go take a look at several different institutions, see what their enrollment numbers look like, see what their budget numbers look like, see how they're funded. Are they funded by state versus local? All of the various curriculum that allow us to look at the institution and say, yeah, they're kind of pretty close to us. We want to include them into the group of our peers. And here's the institution that we would like to consider as our aspirational peer. This is someone that we think we can get to that level, and we would like to look up to that institution. So the system office asked each institution to come up with a list of peers, and that is what they are using, and this is how they structured their dashboard to track the success of TMCC and put it into the context of some sort, something that is, we know we're doing great with graduation rates, but is it good enough when you compare it to similar institutions? We think it's great, but wow, you guys are trailing behind average Western states or what have you. So this is an interesting exercise, and it's certainly, something that we put a lot of thought into. We look at, like I said, enrollment numbers, budget numbers, and we feel like we have a pretty good set of peers that we feel comfortable. That's a good mix of folks that are right there, we're on par with them, and folks that are doing a little bit better than us that we kind of want to push ourselves and reach those levels as well. And so again, the way this dashboard is put together is you can kind of select all the different options that will give you the data for TMCC on enrollment compared to our peer institutions, on graduations compared to our peer institutions, on how well our freshman retention looks like compared to peer institutions. So it's really a very rich source of data and information that allows someone to not only look at the numbers, not only look at the data, but kind of process it in context that would make it a little more relevant and informative. I think that's all I have on NSHE.
Elena, excuse me,
Yes.
can you kind of back out of that and then go into it again so that everyone on the council can see how you got to this website? Because we know that the print is small, but the goal was to show you how to access the information more so than digest all of the information. So you
go to the NSHE-Nevada.edu, which is the NSHE webpage, and then click on Info and Data Center and NSHE Data Dashboard. And that takes you directly to the pages that I demoed today.
So this is very public. Anybody can access this without logging in.
Yes, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And I want to take a couple of minutes to show you some of our things here at TMCC. We're right there behind NSHE, and actually we have had an enrollment dashboard for a while, which is a little bit different in a sense, and if we can launch that and bring it up, please. We put the enrollment dashboard a few years ago, and we did it primarily to give our department chairs, deans, anybody who kind of deals with enrollment and is in a position to affect enrollment quickly, a tool to monitor data dynamically. Now, this is pretty much, it's not live data, but we updated it every single week during the registration cycle. So an enrollment dashboard primarily focuses on things like overall student headcount at this particular point in time for spring semester. That's the registration cycle that we're in. What the FTE looks like, the fill rates in our classes. We want to be able to monitor how effective we are and efficient we are with our course offerings. So there's a balance between providing adequate access so students have adequate choices, but also running an efficient schedule so that we're being prudent stewards of the resources that we have here. And things like section capacity, how many sections we have that have no enrollment. And at this point, the reason you're seeing some sections that have no enrollment is because we have some late start sections that actually have not started yet. Looking at some demographics, enrollment by mode of delivery, all of those things are kind of important for us to keep track of and really monitor in a very dynamic way. And what is really helpful for those decision makers and for those academic leaders on the ground is to be able, again, to see it sort of in comparison. And we always run this as a point-in-time comparison, looking at where we are at this point in time versus where we were at this exact same point in time last year. And that is how you can very quickly see trends and say, well, especially not at this point because we are pretty much into the semester, but a few weeks ago, deans and department chairs were sitting looking at this saying, okay, I'm running a little high on sections with low enrollment, so I need to kind of regroup and see if I need to combine some sections, or, for example, if we click on, let's do division enrollment. So not only you can see a snapshot at the college level, which is probably the page that the president looks at, and we want her to just focus on that, right? But department chairs and divisions, they're concerned about college-wide, but they really, where they can impact things is exactly in their own division or department. So we break it down by division, so each division can see that type of data, but broken down by their division. If we go to department level, drill further down, then you can see it for every single department and program. And things like, we also have information here on course enrollment attempts, for example. So again, if a dean or department chair is looking at it and says, okay, I've got 10 sections of developmental English, but they're all pretty much full, and I've got a bunch of unsuccessful enrollment attempts, meaning that students were attempting to get into the course, but were unsuccessful. So we capture that transactional data and kind of put it into a format that is, again, easily understood, and someone can at a glance look at it and say, okay, if I have time, if I have faculty, if I have rooms, I better add a few more sections of remedial English. Yes.
Can I ask, sorry to interrupt, just want to make sure I understand again. Deborah Beiersdorf from the school district. I understand what FTE means to us. I want to make sure I understand what it means to you. So can you explain that a little bit more and how this tracks? It sounds like in real time, your FTEs, so.
Yes, so
please.
FTE is an enrollment unit measure, which is a full-time equivalency. So it looks, obviously not all of our students are attending full-time, right? So, and it's an equivalent of 12 credits. So you can have, students taking 3 credits, several different students in that. Together, that ends up to one full-time equivalent versus one student taking a 12-credit load. Okay?
Thank you.
And then we have some demographics. This is another fun thing that I'll show you. We kind of added that at the request of our department chairs and deans, who said, well, it would be kind of nice to see if there are any significant trends in demographics that we could be alerted to quickly and be monitoring from week to week, month to month in the registration cycle. Are we capturing enough new students, or are we not retaining enough continuing students and things like that? And also, is there anything interesting happening by high schools? Recent high schools, for example. So again, we are banking that the high school numbers are going to be through the roof in the fall due to Nevada Promise Scholarship. And then looking at international students by race and ethnicity. So that is the enrollment dashboard. And the last thing I wanted to show you, so what we're now doing too is we have pretty small IR staff, and kudos to them, they're doing a fabulous job kind of doing this on the back burner a little bit because they've got a lot of other things to worry about. We put together a performance pool dashboard, and I think that's brought up there somewhere as well. Or actually, Lisa, if you could please back to the IR page and launch, no, scroll down, yeah. So as you know, 20% of our budget is our state general fund allocation is performance-based. So we kind of have to earn that 20%. And the performance pool is made up of a variety of different outcomes. Most of them are driven by completion again. So every year we get goals, or biennium actually, goals that are set for us on these different outcomes that we have to meet and then report on. And that's how 20% of our budget is sort of released back to us. This is something that we put together, and you can see all the different outcomes that we are assessed on. And again, like I said, it's mostly driven by completion. If you hover over the data, the actual number, you can see the definition of what that outcome means, and then you can see it in graphic representation on the bar chart page there up at the top. all the way up, yeah. So I think that's, and we have a Facebook, which is our data book that is available online, but we have plans in the Institutional Research Office to kind of start extracting some sort of Reader's Digest pieces out of the big data book and converting them into these dashboards that, again, would be kind of similar to what the NSHE office does, so that anyone can go to our data portal on the website and see just a wealth of information.
Elena, this is fantastic. I started, as you know, with the ISC, or serving on the ISC just a few months ago, and this is exactly what I personally was looking for, the quantitative data to see how we are actually doing, not just how we are feeling about things. And so there was, I just wrote down 3 questions, and you addressed one of them, which I appreciate, which was how we compare to other, which I find very, very important, how we compare to other community colleges in Nevada. And I believe that for even more of the, let's call them key performance indicators, or whatever you want to call your key figures, that we can do this comparison data on how we rank, how we compare to other institutions in other colleges in the state. The other thing that I did not see, but that's not criticism, that's just an idea for what we're going to include next time, is 2 things: how the actual numbers, these trends look fantastic, but how the actual numbers compare to our projections, to our goals, even though we may have on an important topic or KPI an upward trend, but are we actually going or moving or growing or improving fast enough? Are we falling behind? If that can be included, I would really, I would find that very useful. And the other question is there any data, or were you going to share anything with us about what marketing efforts are particularly, or have been particularly important and helpful to achieve and maintain these trends? The reason why I'm asking is that, over the past few months, you and I have had several marketing discussions. I had an opportunity to meet with Nancy Brun, the CSN IAC chair, and we were discussing the possibility of, and possibly the need for Nevada statewide marketing initiatives to have this cohesiveness and consistency, and certainly also more marketing efficiency within the state. It's going to be more cost efficient, it's going to be more consistent in its messaging. Do you know, or can you share with us, what marketing efforts particularly have been helpful and instrumental in achieving these trends, and others that we possibly want to retire because they are not returning, don't have the return that we want?
I can do it right now. I would be happy to take that question now. I also have it included in my marketing updates, which I believe is an item on the agenda that's a little bit later. But I can tell you that obviously there's a lot of data here and a lot of different goals. So, going forward, we might want to pick, if we're talking about access, we focus specifically on data points related to access. And for instance, I can tell you that obviously we include the issue, we're very cognizant of the access issue in just about every marketing effort that we put out there. We are Hispanic serving institution. We were very fortunate to be designated as such, and we are putting a lot of efforts into reaching out, for example, to our diverse audiences in the community. So a lot of our marketing materials, from our ads to the collateral to our recruitment trips in high schools, are done in Spanish as well, for instance. So that's kind of one strategy that we are consistently maintaining. One of the things that I have in my updates that I plan to talk about is to share with you the collaboration that we have with through KNPB with a variety of different stakeholders in the community that we've worked with for the last at least year. I think it was a year, right, Dr. Hilgerson? About a year. And we addressed those very same points where we literally did an inventory of all the different materials, all the different marketing messages, all the different audiences that each stakeholder in that group. We have representatives of Washoe County School District, we have representatives of TMCC, obviously, WNC System Office, some community organizations, Governor's Office for Economic Development, like I said, a variety of stakeholders that have an interest and presence in the workforce development conversation and the CTE pathways. And so we kind of put a lot of work into sort of throwing it all into one big spreadsheet to say, okay, look at how many different words we're using, look at how many different terms we're using, look at how many different audiences we're talking to. Is there room here to sort of streamline the message, make it a little less overwhelming, streamline the language, come up with a logo, for example, something that is very common, come up with the common marketing message. And that's what this group is doing, which we all kind of have very high hopes for. And that was in my update, but I will share that. I will be happy to share that with you here.
May I add?
And yes, please, Dr.
Well,
Hilgerson.
to the first question about how do we compare to the other community colleges in the state of Nevada, we are number one. And I'm not exaggerating. We outperform on every major indicator that measures our success the other 3 community colleges in the state. The hard part for us is how do we keep the trend going up and up and up? And I think that there are 2 documents that are the territory, right? Excuse me, the map, not the territory. One is a strategic master plan, which we revised it and had it revised by the end of spring. And in that strategic master plan includes a number of new strategies that we're going to try to continue that trend line up. The second thing is a strategic enrollment management plan, which I think are you discussing that later, Elena, or is that might be a topic for another meeting to spend some time?
It's not on today's agenda.
Yeah, because that's kind of another big deal. But ultimately, I think for colleges like us, TMCC, we're at the place because unemployment is so low, and the best indicator of enrollment projection is the May unemployment index. And that an article talked about that in this Inside Higher Ed. So we'll be looking at that May unemployment index, and that's based on kind of Freakonomics and economists looking at community colleges all over the country. So unemployment's low, so people are working a lot. But that doesn't mean we can't improve enrollment, because ultimately we have to go at it by targeting narrow niches such as apprenticeship. I mean, this apprenticeship model will bring more enrollment in addition to being such a wonderful benefit for employers and students, right? So the strategic enrollment management plan helps set our focus for where do we grab those pockets of enrollment that we are now not focusing on. And we can talk more about that later, but we really do out by quite a wide margin, I have to say.
No, I agree with you, Dr.
Yeah.
Hilgerson. I agree with you on this topic, and I'm aware how successful TMCC is compared to statewide, and that's very exciting. But you said it yourself, how do we make sure that we continue these trends? And if I compare this to my background to private business, 2 things that I look at typically is how do our numbers compare to our projections, to our goals? Do we have goals? Do we know how far we are off of our goals? Are we exceeding? Are we not reaching our goals? So number 1. And number 2 is, again, what marketing efforts are particularly helpful to drive these trends where we want them to be, and others where we possibly just spin our wheels, waste a lot of resources and monies that we want to retire. So thank you.
And the second remark I should mention is the community college presidents, we did request that NSHE consider a community college marketing campaign. I'm not sure where that's at right now, but if you happen to be interacting with any of the Board of Regents, it might be something to mention. I think that would be really helpful. But because the response has been somewhat delayed or slow, please, and I think we've mentioned it to Vice Chancellor McKinnon, who's relatively new, and I think will really help us with that. We went ahead and we're doing this sort of localized marketing effort, which is the effort that Elena described, and Kurt Mischie from KNPB has graciously contributed his time and his space to kind of herd the cats. And it does include WNC in on that, which is wonderful, and the school district, which has been wonderful, to try to streamline that message, starting with probably middle school and beyond. So
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you very much. Are there any? Mr. Bender?
I have a question. It's great that we compare ourselves to everybody else in the state of Nevada.
Right.
However, we're also competing with other entities within, say, just the West Coast. Is there any way that we can get at data that would give us an opportunity to look at maybe the higher levels of, maybe some of the larger metrics as opposed to detailed metrics from community colleges in California, Oregon, Washington, Utah, places that are sort of competitors of
She should go
ours
back.
as we continue to develop manufacturing and other businesses in this area? We're going to have more education for the type of businesses that are coming here, which we work on, but I don't know. I mean, I'm just wondering, is there a methodology for getting at a comparison between other areas that are doing the same things that we're doing, so that when a business comes here, they can look at that and say, we're doing something really, different. And obviously, logistics is our thing, but it strikes me that we really need to be more global than just local.
Absolutely, and that's a great way to look at it, certainly, because we do have to be aware of sort of our competition, not only immediately in our backyard, but a little bit more globally. Now, I have to clarify that our peers, the iPads peers that I showed you on the ANSHI webpage, are actually, none of them are Nevada institutions. So there are California institutions, there are Washington institutions, Colorado. We have 4 or 5 different states as our peers. So that is sort of a little bit more of a macro, and like I said, it's a set group of peers that you look at some of the more common indicators within that group. But certainly when we look at different programs, there's a lot of research that goes into sort of scoping the competition within our geographic region. Either we're looking at the curricular level initiatives that they have, or we're looking at some of their indicators, fiscal enrollment related, and a lot of that information actually is available through iPads. Like literally, you can pull up any college, and it will compare a TMCC against that college. You can kind of put the data side by side and take a look at it. We have a set group of peers that doesn't change, at least for a number of years. We're looking at that same group, right?
I'll add a little bit to that. So our new chancellor, and I think this was a really good direction for presidents, directed us to choose, it was 3 and 3 peers that were kind of on par with outside of the state of Nevada. And then, was it 3 and 3 or 2? I know it went back and forth, and then I believe 3 aspirational peers. And those are the colleges and that are not in the state of Nevada that are exceeding our current indicators, and we want to match them and at some point exceed them too. And so that is all accessible on the NSHE dashboard that Elena shared a little bit ago. It's kind of hard to read from here, but if you have time to Google it later on today, you can kind of drill in there and you'll see some of the information that I think you're talking about, which is really important for us because it's key that we benchmark regionally and nationally. At the program level, however, I think we could do more work. I think we could figure out better ways to access information, especially from California, to see if we're meeting the same bar, or possibly from an enrollment perspective, we can be a magnet for some of our neighboring states and fulfill an industry need, like logistics, for example. But one example of where this has happened is when we did the needs assessment for culinary and hospitality and tourism. The research made it very clear that we can provide an educational option even for California students who, when they go to community colleges, it's almost free right now. So it's hard to compete from an economic standpoint. We can't. But we can compete very well with culinary, hospitality, and tourism, because right now, a lot of people in a tri-state region are relying on private proprietary schools and paying between $40,000 and $30,000 at the bottom end a year to get a degree that we could offer once we up our game and have enough faculty to do the work and a beautiful facility that competes with the facilities that some of these entities provide. And so I think at the program level, it's harder. It's harder to get at, but I think it's a really good point, and that we will continue to do our best to get at that.
I just think competition is
Right.
a real driver of success.
We have to move on. Thank you very much for the comment. I just want to, comment real quick or give a response to Chris Bender's point. I think you're kind of thinking big picture, taking us to the 30,000-foot view, which is, I personally appreciate that. I think this is the right direction to take. However, at this time, I personally think if we don't get the first step right, don't think about the second step. I want to take us back to the NC strategic goals, especially to number 1 and number 3, access, increased participation in post-secondary education, and number 3, close the achievement gap among underserved student populations. Before, we use this term global quite frequently in the context of our TMCC ISC meetings. I don't, personally, I think we are not there yet, because we are facing and dealing with immediate competition on certain key programs for TMCC, competition with UNR, competition with other colleges in the state of Nevada. And at the same time, we leave opportunities untouched where, as we discussed briefly, where we can co-market and have cohesive marketing statewide if we collaborate on these on very efficient marketing initiatives with other colleges, just to build a cohesive and consistent messaging within the state of Nevada. As much as I think you're right about the 30,000-foot big picture view, I think it is dangerous to go there just now, because we're not ready for that yet. Once we have cohesive marketing in the state of Nevada, and we know exactly where we want to be, we know now where we are, I think then we are ready for that. I just want to caution us not to take the second before the first step.
Well, I guess sort of misinterpretation from what I'm suggesting. All I'm saying is that if we only compare ourselves to ourselves, we're in an echo chamber.
Absolutely.
And I think we need to branch out of that. And obviously, the Chancellor has said, pick somebody to compare against. Yep. And I think that's just important, that there is a outside view. And I don't mean global, I mean local area.
Yeah.
Within 500 miles of here, or, something that's nice and tight, so that when somebody's in Sacramento and they're looking for an educational opportunity, that they'll consider just us as opposed to going somewhere else. I mean, that's all I'm getting at, is I think we need to be competitive within our regional area. I also think we are competitive with UNR and the other colleges to whatever degree we are, and that there are some things that TMCC offers that are, less expensive. We don't have a giant facility for this and that and everything else. We are focused, and we focus on specific things. So I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I also think that we can't ignore that degree of competition is a very good thing. I mean, it
Absolutely
simply is.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Alina. We are going to take a break after item 8, agenda item 8. So we have 2 more things to address. 8B, the discussion and possible action by the ISC to direct staff to create a dashboard to be updated and presented at future ISC meetings. And then 8C, an update by SGA President and TMCC Student Government Association activities and initiatives. Gloria Chavez is kind enough to fill in for Kim Tran today. So we're going to get to the discussion of a possible dashboard implementation first. This should really be an open dialogue, because we need to know from you, from the ISC members, what numbers you want to take away from these meetings, what dashboard numbers are important for the community, for the 4 stakeholders that we are, addressing here and for the 5 anti-strategic goals. I'm going to hand it over to you, Dr. Hilgersim, but this is going to be a dialogue. We need your input on the key figures that the ISC members want to see on the dashboard for the upcoming ISC meetings.
And the sun is just right. So I don't know if I should just, does this help? No, does this help? I think I'll.
Move back.
There we go, that's good, that's much better. Okay. So, and as you can see, there's quite a lot of data there now, but if there's anything that we're missing, or maybe there's one data point in particular that you would like an update on quarterly. And this is one of the strategies that NCHE is beginning to use, that at the Board of Regents meeting, they'll be highlighting a particular data point at every Regents meeting, which I think is a very interesting idea. I think Mike had a...
I had 2 quick ones, and Elena's still here. When is the academic year 16-17 data going to be uploaded and populated in NCHE?
Some of that is already there. What's not there is graduation rates, which is 3 years behind typically.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And on this particular part of the data that we have, I know this is all real-time stuff, but if you populate your associate degrees earned, how are you accounting for the applied associate of science degrees? Are they all grouped together with the associate degrees? Because I'm looking at the different things, and you have skills certificates, gateway, STEM, everything else except the applied associate science degrees.
You're talking about associate of applied science degrees? Well, these are, so that data is in the fact, but not in on this dashboard, the only thing you are looking at are the performance pool outcomes. And so the performance pool outcomes include things like the count of degrees, the straightforward count of all associate degrees, and they're lumped together. So all associate degrees include transfer degrees and associate of applied science in this particular chart.
I think that would be advantageous, especially for this group, if they saw the Associate of Applied Sciences separate, because that's very, very closely correlated to the workforce development and everything at the...
Maybe certificates too.
Well, certificates are in here, skill certificates are listed individually, but not the AAS degrees.
Okay.
And I think that's a hidden nugget that this group would be particularly interested in, as opposed to it all being in one associate degree bucket.
And we can absolutely do that. Like Dr. Hilgersom said, if we identify, it's all, this is like all of it, right? But if we identify a particular topic, and for example, we say number of degrees or completion, so we can kind of bring data and make it a little bit easier to see and break it down and walk you through and put it in context comparisons and things like that, so that just like the Board of Regents are featuring one particular data point and then everything around it, how do we compare, what kind of initiatives we have around it, how do we know that we're making progress, that type of stuff, so we can do it that way as well.
The other aspect of that is some of those degrees have the funding multiplier that are associated with them that are going to be a very good indicator of what's going on there for the workforce.
So I have one, but hope Elena's head doesn't explode. So one of the things that we've talked about at the KNPB, I call them the KNPB meetings, even though they're really school district, community college people, but they're at the KNPP office. That's where we meet on the statewide, the localized marketing campaign. But we've had conversations about skilled talent and the fact that skilled talent connotes a person who's earned a 2-year Associate of Applied Science degree, and they have a really high return on investment, so in many of the occupational areas. So it might be interesting to have a skilled talent update. When we look at some of the occupations that pay really well with the 2-year degree, and nursing is a wonderful example, how are we doing on that? So, and I don't know how that would look, but that's just a suggestion, because I think part of it is getting the message out that skilled talent is a 2-year degree earned at a community college, and it can really, really pay off and lead to a very happy and satisfying career. So, anyway.
Could I bring up one point? Is there some way we could get, sort of my background in finance, of just a snapshot on the budget, how we're doing on the budgeting, where you have mentioned certain areas where you would like to see more availability. How do we look going into the next biennium? What are we seeing up and down? Because this is always, the great understanding of the funding formula, but how are we doing? We came out of the last biennium in pretty good shape. Is that going to keep moving forward? And where are we? How are we doing on budget?
And Jimmy, would you like to speak to that?
I mean, is there something we can see on a,
Regular basis.
yes,
How we are doing on budget
Yes.
this year. For fiscal years 18 and 19, we are very healthy. The legislature was generous with its overall budget for higher education. The increase in weighting for the programs in CTE, which are aligned with the governor's economic development plan, was very beneficial for us, resulting in a couple $2 million extra over the biennium that we would not have had otherwise. Actually, I think it's closer to about $3 million over the biennium in total, collectively. We also received money for, I always confuse these C's, there's capacity and caseload. I think it was caseload growth that we got the money.
Enhancement was the other way.
And the other enhancement will, the legislature did not fund one of the enhancements in FY18, but did fund it in FY19 for another $1 million that we'll be seeing. Going forward in FY20 and 21, I do have a little bit of concern over that. This year is our count year for the budget setting for those 2 years. And despite the fact that we say that we changed our funding formula from an enrollment formula to a completion formula, there's kind of a double-edged sword with the completion initiative. If you don't have a growing population of students to draw from, your completion is not going to go up unless your enrollments go up as well. And the conundrum that we find ourselves in is kind of a catch-22. Without a growing population base, the more students that we complete, the lower our enrollment goes. And so our enrollment for the biennium going forward is down. Elena and I were talking about this yesterday. We think it's going to be down around 5 to 6% compared to the last count year. Of course, the funding formula really isn't a funding formula, it's a distribution formula. So our budget will be based not only on our enrollment, but how we compare with our sister institutions and how big the pie is that the legislature gives to the higher education system. I'm not terribly concerned that we're going to be looking at draconian cuts going forward in that biennium. I think we will see a little bit of a dip in the budget, a couple of percent maybe. Again, just depending on how the budget comes out for the state. I think subsequent biennia, we will be very healthy. We will see things that are going to really bump up our enrollment and our completion rates as well, not the least of which is the Promise Grant, the Promise Scholarships. And the growing population base in Reno ultimately is going to catch up to us. The irony is we're going to see enrollment from the Promise Scholars coming in the door at exactly the same time that the lagging formula will determine our budget going forward. So we have made that case before NSHE. We think that they've heard us loud and clear, and I think they've taken it to legislators that we do have to understand the reality that the formula is a lagging indicator, whereas we're putting something in place right now that's going to have potentially a dramatic impact on us in that same time period.
So Jim, I think what the IAC is requesting, and I think it's a really reasonable request, is that at every IAC meeting, that perhaps in the handouts, there is a quarterly report of where the budget is in terms of revenue and spending.
Yes,
and
also
and I'm accustomed to seeing those at local board meetings, so I think we can swing that, and I think it's a great idea.
And also addressing, thank you, Jim, for, how we're moving forward on that,
right?
Where we are estimating how we're going to do in the legislature.
Absolutely. Now, I will turn to Craig Scott, our budget director, who's in the office, in the audience here, before I make a firm commitment on this.
Oh, we're making the commitment.
We will make a commitment. My hesitation surrounds, we're still working out what we can get out of Workday very easily. Workday is a new enterprise system that we moved to in October, and the reporting features in Workday have been giving us a little bit of headaches, and Craig is.
That is a legitimate issue.
Yes. Craig is a little more on top of it, much more on top of it than I am. So.
Workday reporting certainly is a challenge. We've been using this system now for about 4 months. It is a challenge, but we can get, excuse me, we can certainly provide summary information on a quarterly basis, a progress report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank
as
you,
we
Jim.
get better with Workday, I expect those reports to become more robust for the council.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you.
Ms. Chavez, we are moving on to the update by the SGA.
Yes, hello, I'm Gloria Chavez, the SGA secretary in place of the president. She couldn't be here today. So we're in the process of running our special elections to approve an updated constitution that we have. We had to give it to the students to make sure that they're okay with it since we're the student body. And then as soon as those wrap up, we'll be moving into the regular election season where we'll open up applications, have a campaigning period, and have meet and greets and stuff like that with the candidates. So that'll be coming up. The Elections Committee has been working on that. We are in the process of updating our other governing documents that in the expectation of the Constitution being approved in these special elections, then everything will be uniform and in line with each other. And then we've also been doing a bunch of classroom presentations so that we can increase our outreach to the students and let them know that the student government exists and we're here to help them and to put on events for them. So we've given a few so far and we're going to continue to do those throughout the semester. And then, of course, as always, we're working on other miscellaneous events to put on for the students.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? We're taking a break now. It is almost 11, so I want to make sure we don't run out of time. There's still quite a bit to cover. Let's keep it at 10 minutes and not longer than 10 minutes. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 9, industry employer direction. Items under this heading will address the following NG strategic goal plan goals: workforce. We have 2 subtopics. The first one is going to be a discussion related to career and curriculum alignment in the following areas. 2 new program ideas or concepts that we want to get a motion on today. The first one is the Quality Assurance Program, and the second one is a Smart City Technologies Program. Southern Nevada initiated that very successfully, and we want to evaluate through the regular process, the need analysis, the feasibility study, how this applies, factually how this applies to our area as well. I'm sure that most of us will agree that this sounds like the right idea for industry and manufacturing and services in Reno, but we want to make sure that it passes the process. The information was provided and distributed. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. For the Quality Assurance Program, the top industries specifically are the automotive industry, aerospace, defense, electronics, medical devices, and pharmaceuticals. Interestingly, if we correlate that with the TMCC ISC metrics that were shared as well, the analysis of the top 20 industries represented by registered employers, it is interesting to note that out of 20, the automotive ranks in place number 6. The manufacturing industry, which presumably includes aerospace, because aerospace is not mentioned or outlined specifically, ranks in place number 8. And believe it or not, biotech and pharmaceuticals in place number 19. So a completely different picture than what we would expect in New Jersey, in Connecticut, in New York, and even in Florida, in Texas, or in Minnesota, where we have, you know, the hubs for medical devices, for the pharmaceutical industry, and for the aerospace industry, for that matter, as well, especially Florida and Texas. Now, as we discussed during the recent ISC meeting, and again, looking at the stakeholders, the community especially, community and students as well, because we want to have as many, you know, well-paying jobs in the area. We want to make sure that families are well taken care of, that people earn enough money and good enough salaries to take care of their families. The industries that we are mentioning under the quality assurance program are exactly those industries that drive income up, that those highly regulated industries that are very income heavy, that bring a lot of prosperity and wealth to communities. We are probably, and I don't want to share too much of my personal opinion, but we're probably at the stage in the new Nevada, in Reno, after the recession, where we no longer want to rely only on, we appreciate them, but we do not want to rely only on distribution centers, on warehouses, on the typical jobs that allow us to, you know, pay wages of $8, $9, $10, maybe $12 an hour. So this is going in a very interesting direction, and we wanted to present the quality assurance program. What you will also find in the handouts that were provided is an overview of the expected average annual salaries in the U.S. for the most common professions and job titles or functions in both the quality assurance world or field and in smart city technologies as well. I'm going to get to smart city technologies in just a moment because that field is even more vast and even bigger than quality assurance, even though quality assurance spans over, you know, primarily these industries, these six industries that we mentioned, and actually even more than that. Typical professions are the quality inspector, from bottom to top in this case, quality inspector, starting at an average income annually of $32,677, and these numbers, the source for these numbers is pay scale, human capital. There's a ton of sources. There's probably thousands of data points that we can use. We found that these numbers are very credible. Quality technician, quality analyst, quality engineer, quality manager, and eventually, depending on the corporate structure of the entities, quality directors, quality VPs. So it's a function that you will see at every single level in every manufacturing company, especially those that are ISO certified, those that are regulated by the FAA or by the FDA and other companies. The second program that we want to have your thoughts and your input on, and eventually have the motion on today, is smart city technologies. And I have to give credit to Nancy Brune, the ISC chair at CSN, to bring this up to my attention. I was very focused on quality assurance, and I see the value in that, but she says they are very successfully working on a smart city technologies program. And I just had, as a matter of fact, just in the hallway, a 2-minute conversation with former Vice Chair Asquaga about the extent to which smart city technologies are applicable. With her background, obviously, in the gaming industry, we need technologists and engineers in financial services, in urban planning, in architecture, transportation, green technologies, entertainment, law enforcement, gaming, hospitality. I think I mentioned financial services. Simply everywhere. This field is incredibly vast, and we want to make sure that we get a ground floor position here with the Reno area in the development and application and rollout commercially of these technologies. Typical professions, obviously, are software engineers, senior software engineers, developers, UX, user interface engineers, application engineers, solution engineers, and implementation specialists. So these job titles vary from company to company, from industry to industry. They're just there to provide an idea. And if you look at the average salaries, they rank on the low end, $51,520. Again, same sources, pay scale, human capital, all the way up to $100,000. And these are non-managerial positions. So if you add the managerial component to that, you can add additional income to these professions. We would like to evaluate if we can lead these two initiatives, these two programs to the next step, to the need assessment as well as to the feasibility study, and have a motion on getting this process initiated. Are there any questions before we get to the motion? Are there any questions to these two program initiatives? Then may I have a motion, please, to approve, to direct the administration to take steps to start working on the need assessment as well as a feasibility study for both programs, quality assurance as well as smart city technologies.
I'll make the motion to move forward with the needs assessment and feasibility studies for the quality assurance program and smart city technologies program.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
May I say something, Mr.
Please.
Chair? First of all, I want to thank you for passing the motion, and I think for speaking on behalf of TMCC administration in particular, I think one of the things that the IAC can really help us do is set directions for new program development. We will report back when the needs assessment is done, and it truly is an honest needs assessment. I hope all is positive, but one of the things that is really key to a needs assessment is, will our students want to enroll in the program? Because they vote with their feet. And what we want to see when we do a needs assessment is a lot of interest coming from our potential students, our community, and even our current students.
Sure.
One of the things that I'm connecting though in my mind is, Chris, your comment earlier about having programs that can really compete. These are two examples of possible programs that will be so relatively unique that it might be the type of thing that we could market around the region and in different states. So that part is pretty interesting to me personally. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jorgensen. I think we covered B and C as well. We can move on to item number 10, TMCC directions. Finally, items under this heading will address the following NSHE strategic plan goals. Goal number 1, which is access, and goal number 2, which is success, and goal number 5, which is research. Elena, we will have another update on current marketing initiatives. Thank you.
Elena Bubnova for the record, so you guys are not tired of me yet, huh? I'm back up here. Well, I do have, I appreciate the opportunity to provide marketing update to you. I really am thrilled that this board, this council is very engaged and always has great ideas for marketing. So we need all the ideas that we can. We also need resources. I always like to say that. Never enough money for marketing. I wanted to share with you a few examples of some of the things that we're doing right now, and not to repeat a lot of the things that you have already heard, but the bullets that I have prepared for today actually answered Chair Davi's question earlier about what are some of the strategies and things that you think work best. Now, I shared with you earlier the new tagline that we launched last year, the College for the New Nevada. So you can see it, we try to promote it everywhere on all of our electronic signatures. And this is actually working extremely well. And the new ad strategy that goes with it is something that is all around TMCC, the notion of TMCC pays off. So we launched that new ad strategy, which plays kind of with words to get attention. I've shared all of those clever ads with you. And the beauty of it is that we can kind of expand it to all sorts of different programs. So what really, and the reason this works extremely well, and we get all sorts of feedback on our ad campaign that normally we kind of don't necessarily hear from folks. We hear from our high school students, which this population you never hear from, really, as far as the ads that you put out there. And we believe that one of the reasons that it's successful is again, being a little bit edgy, a little bit clever, which we haven't really done. We've done a lot of very conventional registration types of advertisement. And so kind of venturing out a little bit, playing with words, and we can sort of flip through as I'm talking through all the different ads. And I think I can do that, Lisa is telling me. So you've seen all these different things, and we've created a few more as well. So this a little bit clever, a little bit edgy, a little bit of humor, all of these things are working very well. But the other aspect of the TMCC Pays Off ad strategy that is very effective is this whole message of how we are in kind of a completely new economic era, not only in our region, but nationally as well. So it's no secret that the value of higher education is being questioned left and right. The idea of conventional four-year degree is being questioned left and right. We are now beginning to serve digital natives. So all of our kids are grown up, and now they're showing up on the doorsteps of our colleges. And guess what? They have a completely different take on life. So what do they want? They want things fast. What do they not want to do? They don't want to read a lot. How long on average it takes them to scroll through their feed, and how long they kind of stop and look at something like this? 3 seconds on average. So we really have to sort of kind of shift gears here, all of us, and learn the lingo, learn the way to speak to them in a way that really appeals to them. So the idea, the new economic reality, and it is certainly playing out in our region, is that we've got all these new emerging technologies. We also got a region that has gone through a pretty terrible dry spell. So everyone is ready to go back to work. So folks are anxious to go back to work. There's really not perhaps a whole lot of excitement, as much as we would like to generate it, to go back to school for years and years with a very questionable return at the end of it. Folks are looking for, as well as employers, and that we can debate how viable of a strategy that is, looking for a very short, quick, on point, specific to what I need right here, right now type of a training without a whole bunch of extras. Now, those are useful things. We do want to produce well-rounded citizens, but that is kind of the reality. Folks are looking for training that is immediately going to put them into a job, immediately is going to put them into a job where they can make livable wages. They want to see things that pay off. So that is the ad strategy that has been very, very successful for us. Putting that whole message out there that TMCC pays off. You get here, and this is that skill talent that the president was talking about earlier. That's that whole middle skill type of training where it's above high school clearly, but not necessarily full all the way through four-year baccalaureate degrees. That's what applied training is. That's what industries want. And certainly in our regions, we can't pump them out fast enough. So that was very successful. We're continuing with that. Now, so if you have not tweeted yet about being here today, because you know you were having buckets of fun, do that. So our Twitter handle is at TMCC Nevada, and tell everyone how great of a time you're having in your meeting here, and hashtag TMCC pays off. So one of the things, these ads that we've kind of rotated through, were mostly focused on career technical education programs. Those are kind of the easiest to tackle. There's usually good visuals that go with it. There's exciting equipment. There is all sorts of things playing with fire, you know. It gets a little trickier when you get to the transfer side of the house, and certainly we want to be cognizant of that as well, because that is a big portion of our mission. That's a big chunk of our enrollment. We do want to speak to those folks that want to start their educational journey at TMCC, do their university preparatory work here, and move on to our sister institutions. So we kind of struggled a little bit with trying to come up with some clever way of talking about transfer. So I'm gonna skip through all that. You guys have seen that. Oh, cuteness overload.
Writing on walls pays off. My core classes cost half the price, and because TMCC is accredited, I can transfer to a four-year school. With over 50 areas of study, TMCC has an affordable program for you too.
I don't know if you caught that at the very beginning. It said writing on walls pays off. And so literally we have walls where, you can write on, so which is pretty cool. I keep trying to convince that entire wall. All right. Do we have a marker so we can maybe write? Everyone leave your autograph before you leave. So the other thing that we really feel is another strategy that we are kind of picking up speed on and is working well is social media, and kind of continuing the theme of serving digital natives. We absolutely put a lot of effort into increasing our presence on social media. Now, regardless of what all of us here think, and sometimes I feel like, okay, how much time do you want to spend on something like that? Well, our prospective students spend a lot of time on social media, and this is where we need to be. So even though we don't have a designated staff person who can kind of put some effort and thought into developing a strategy, executing it, so we're kind of all sharing. And Kate Kirkpatrick is here. Shout out to you, Kate. She does a lot of that, and we kind of all try to chip in and kind of coordinate and say, what are we going to tweet about? What kind of information we're going to push out on Facebook? And I hope you have noticed that, because what we have tried to do is not only we try to be really systematic about us being out there in social media and really kind of be cognizant about all the best practices, that we don't want to be talking at people too much about us, just like an 80-20 rule in a social setting. You want to be talking 80% of the person about the person that's in front of you and 20% about yourself. That's how you kind of grab people's attention. So we try to follow some of these practices, some of these best practices in social media usage. So we're really thoughtful about it, but we also very consistent, which is extremely important. We also made it a point and put a lot of effort into engaging on social media with our community and business partners. And that's, again, how we try to raise the profile of TMCC in the community. So if Renown got a grant, we want to comment on that. We want to like them on social media. And it might not take a lot of time, but it might be a social capital that we can use in developing our relationships with businesses. And I'm being told that I have to wrap it up. So one other thing I want to emphasize in response to the earlier question again is that, and unfortunately we don't have a lot of resources, but program-specific advertisement is what is also very effective. And again, we can't afford to do a lot of it, but we've been very fortunate to get a grant from the Bender Foundation to specifically push out the logistics program. We have been extremely fortunate to get a marketing grant that we just received a word on from the Nevada Governor's Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology. And those things don't come up very often. There's a lot of grants out there, and rarely does a grant include marketing dollars, which is very unfortunate. And the Nevada Governor's Office for Economic Development put this RFP out there, and it's specifically for the HVAC marketing and unmanned aircraft systems, UAS marketing. And so we will be doing some more program-specific marketing using those dollars, which, again, we find very effective as well. I had some statistics to share with you about our increased use of social media. We've gone up tremendously in the number of posts that we put out there. Like per month last year, we had a little over 59 posts. We're up to 175 this year. Overall on Twitter, the follower count last year was a little over 3,000. This year, it's over 4,000. So again, we're tracking our progress. We're trying to see if, the things that we're putting our time into, not a whole lot of resources here, but our time, is this working? We really started, and that's where the sort of the marriage of research, web services, and marketing divisions being brought together is very helpful. I try to kind of make it a priority with my staff to really tinkle with Google Analytics and make the best of it so that we can kind of really track progress and put some numbers behind this and say, do we increase web traffic? Do we attract more people to our web? Do they actually matriculate? Do they click on the application? Where do they get stuck? That type of stuff. So I'm going to wrap up.
Elena, a quick question. The messaging, the artwork is very catchy, what you just presented. Looks fantastic. Great work on that. Now, hitting the NSHE strategic plan goal, again, number one, access, increased participation in post-secondary education. Social media is not new, so we did not just start, TMCC did not just start presenting and marketing on social media. What is changing? You changed the artwork and updated all that, which is fantastic, but what channels clearly don't work? What channels are we going to retire? And again, social media not being new, what are we going to do differently on social media to reach our access and our participation goals?
Well, social media is not new. You are absolutely correct. However, we have not utilized it nearly as much as how much we're utilizing it right now. So, like I said, we had some presence on Facebook. We had limited presence on Twitter. But it literally was not until last year that we kind of created a strategy and we sat down and we said, how frequently we're going to do this. We worked with all of our departments to say we created a plan for any department that wants to have any presence on social media. We actually asked them to create a plan. We sit down with them, we do the training, and the training includes things like what kind of content we're going to be putting out there, what content you're going to be promoting versus the college-wide pages are going to be promoting. What are the sort of specs around the logo use? We don't want to have a bunch of, distorted identity out there so that people go from page to page and they don't really know, are they looking at TMCC or it's a variation of TMCC, because the consistency of the brand equals trust. We want to build that trust. So we have done a lot of things that are kind of fairly new as far as how we deploy social media to achieve some of those goals.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We move on to 10C, the overview of the existing TMCC undergraduate research opportunities, presented by Laura Briggs.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and there's so much to say in so little time. So I'll try to be really fast. I am Laura Briggs. I'm a professor in the biology department. I'm also the undergraduate research coordinator at TMCC, and I get to serve as the department chair right now as well. So I've got my fingers in a lot of places, and this is probably one of my favorite. I actually came from industry. I was in industry for 10 years before I came to TMCC in biotech, and I had the opportunity to hire a number of college graduates. And what I saw over and over again is, though they might be really good at doing book work, they were not ready to work as a scientist. We hadn't trained them to be scientists. We trained them to be students. And I think in the sciences, more than any other of the disciplines, we fail at that a little bit. And what is the answer? Is undergraduate research. And so what we know and we see at TMCC is not different than what we see across the country, is that when we can engage students in undergraduate research early in their career particularly, what we see is persistence, we see retention, we see higher grades, right? And this is pretty common across the board. And we also are seeing then increased amounts of students then going on to graduate school. Okay? They're already feeling like a scientist when they're at college still. And that gives them so much confidence. And I think that more than anything else that I see, what's really different about the students that do undergraduate research is their confidence levels. They believe in themselves. And I think that kind of all boils down into the authenticity of what they're doing. Okay? So they know that the outcome of the experiment is dependent on them. It isn't something that I engineered beforehand, that I already know what the outcome's going to be, because the truth is I don't, and neither do they. And what does that do? Well, then that almost demands them to think, right? To employ their critical thinking skills, to actually put their ideas together and communicate them in an articulate manner. And then out of all this comes this real deep understanding of the scientific method and what it means to be a scientist. And so I'm going to show you some of the things that we're doing at TMCC and from undergraduate research perspective. We, of course, aren't a research institution, and research is not part of my day-to-day job. So one of the easiest ways to get it in is to do it in courses that already exist. And in psychology, Psychology 275 is a research-based course where the students pick a topic and they design experiments. They actually collect the data, and then at the end they have a really nice symposium where the students present their work in a poster format. And it's really cool, faculty or judges, and it's a really great thing. And that kind of is the flavor of what's going on at TMCC, and I'm going to show you some of the things that the biology department is doing to implement this. So I run what is called a CPHASES project. C stands for Science Education Alliance. It is a global project now, very big across the United States. The Howard Hughes Medical Institute supports it. And it's centered at the University of Pittsburgh. And what students do in my microbiology class is they bring in a soil sample that they collect, and then they isolate bacteriophage from that soil as well as bacteria, and then they spend the semester characterizing and identifying it. And we go to UNR and they do electron microscopy, which is like, you know, it's kind of like seeing the ultrasound of your baby for the first time. You're like, oh my gosh, there's my phage. And so they just, it's like the best part of the semester. And then because it's a national program, then our students are reporting on a national database and share. And so what you're seeing here is a couple shots that Tim took in our laboratory class, but then this particular program allows us to bring 2 TMCC students every year to Denali Farms in Virginia, the Howard Hughes Medical Institute's neuroscience campus, and they present their work at a conference. It's a 2-semester course, so the second semester is bioinformatics. So here you can see an electron micrograph of one of our phage that we've captured. And then at the bottom is part of the bioinformatics kind of thing. It's not really relevant, but this is kind of the two together are putting this particular program together. So it's a 2-semester, and we're sending some we send probably 6 to 10 students every semester to conferences across the country. And we've published several of our genomes on GenBank, so you can see 2 of these, and I bolded and underlined the students' names and TMCC, and we have a couple publications nationally with the students now too. Another way we're doing undergraduate research in our courses is in our organismal biology class, and this is a really fun project too. The students use camera trap studies. And what they do, they're looking for species diversity, and then we roll into this some preferences, like lure and bait preferences. So the students choose the bait, and then they take them out in the field and set them up with cameras. And through this way, they're really using the scientific method then. And here's just some of the shots that have come from the cameras. So actually a lot of cats. Yeah. I mean, they're out at night and we don't know it. Yes. But there's actually a lot of cats. And so this is another really great way we can get it into the class. But we do more. What ends up happening is once the students get the taste of it, then they want to do it after class too. They don't want to stop, right? And so that brings us to some of the things that we do outside of our courses. And this is where we don't have a lot of people doing this. I think there's 3 of us or so. But we mentor probably 10 to 15 students every year afterwards, right? So we've got a number of different things going on. And I kind of cobble it together so you see all the logos. I found that I can be pretty successful writing small grants, like $10,000 or less, and it can go a long way. Nevada Embry is a huge supporter of this program, and they've actually supported us with tens of thousands of dollars to purchase equipment and consumables so we can keep this going outside of our classrooms. And so it's a really cool opportunity. And I just wanted to point out a couple other things. Rebecca Holloway, with her mentor, Samir Bhattarai, they wrote a grant. It's over now, which is a small grant, only one student, but this kind of shows you how at least we can get started somewhere. And they developed a lab module that's now being used in our environmental science courses. So a lot of different ways we can be creative about getting research into TMCC, even though we're not a research institution. And so some of our others that we've got going on, but the plus others I wanted to just finish up real quick. I was saying one that we're really proud of, and that's what we call it bioresearch. It is a second semester for summer bridge students, so it targets the low-income first-gen students. And so after their first year of college, then they can apply for our 5-week, 5-day, it's 8 in the morning till noon. It's an exhausting 5 weeks, but we have them in the lab. They're just like if they were working in an actual laboratory. And it's stemming from our phage research, because I've been able to expand. That's what we can mostly expand on. And then after they've done the 1 year, then they can apply the next year to be a peer mentor. And so now we're servicing 24 students every summer in this particular program. And then some of the things that we have in the works. So we've submitted 3 grants to the Nevada Embry pilot program, and all 3 of these, if funded, then will be supporting undergraduate research. So thank you so much for your
Dr. Briggs,
attention.
thank you. It's infectious. It is wonderful to see how much you enjoy what you're doing. Thank you so much for your great work.
Yep.
Can I commend her
Thank
too?
you. Yes.
Yeah, marvelous. That's great.
Do you want to say anything?
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Laura Briggs. That was fantastic.
Yep.
And I love the work you do. And it was fun this summer seeing the students working hard in the labs. It's so cool.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
January 29th will be our symposium, so
Right.
shall I invite you all? Of course.
And yes, and your passion for this work is so abundantly clear. It was really fun. I'm tweeting about you.
Good to see you.
That's why I was on my phone.
Thank you again. We move on to item 11, new business. Is there any new business? Hearing none. Item number 12, and that will give, as I said earlier, that will give every member sitting here an opportunity, 1 to 2 minutes. Let's keep it short, just to share your takeaways from this meeting, what you found most important, what you're taking away, what possible next actions and steps that will lead to. Joe, can we start with you?
Sure. So I think that my takeaways, I'm very interested in learning more about how to support nursing in the rurals. I think that's, I hear a lot, being at UNR with the medical school, talking about the need for family medicine out in rural Nevada. And it's a push to get these doctors and these medical professionals to go out there and practice. And a lot of them are coming from the rurals, getting their education and then going back out. And so I think that was an interesting thing for me to hear that. The other thing would be with regard to the dashboards. I think that being an educator, I think that I'm very interested in finding out about how that data is taken and how it informs decisions regarding the outreach to specific high schools. Looking at I can't remember the slide numbers exactly, but there was one graph that said that a majority of new students are coming from Washoe County School District. And I think that I would love to find out more, perhaps in a different setting, about how the data informs the outreach and the programming.
Thank you.
John Madole, of course, my interest is primarily construction. I would just point out that the TMCC kind of partnered with the AGC, and they've added some Caterpillar units to teach people how to operate heavy equipment, which in the letter that TMCC sent, I noticed they said that would take the people in your diesel mechanics course and give them another dimension by letting them also get trained as operating engineers and operating equipment. I think today's meeting kind of helps me fit this stuff together a little bit. I know that's just one piece of a very large wheel, but I think you guys are doing a great job of meeting the needs. I'm one of those that's convinced that a four-year degree is not quite as relevant as it used to be. This is really where it's at.
Thank you.
I'm really thrilled that they're increasing the nursing program by 40 more students. And we have such a demand for healthcare in this area, so that was my biggest takeaway.
Wonderful. Deborah Byersdorf, lots of takeaways, great presentations, learned a lot today, but two that I wanted to focus on, the feasibility study, and very, very interesting work, and something I will take back to Washoe as well to see how we can support. And then yesterday, the district held its yearly Principal for the Day. We had 133 pairs. I got to take folks from Panasonic as well as our county manager, John Slaughter, to our new facility over at Sparks High School. Wanted to make sure I got the right title for this. It's our automated robotics lab and maker space. So if anybody is interested in, because I was very excited about all this, if anybody would like to go visit, give a shout out to me and I would be happy to take you on a tour. Thank you.
Chris Bender, my takeaway from this is I'm very encouraged to see the change in the layout of what we're attempting to do based on the Nishi's goal system. I think that's really important from a very top level kind of mentality about how TMCC interacts with the community. I also am hopeful that the statistical data will be developed about competition within other schools within our geographical or competitive area, I guess would be a better way to put it. I feel that there are lots of opportunities for TMCC to get into different forms of education. I know the social media sounds really terrible, but reality is they're coming along and they don't want to read anymore. So we've got to be able to present it in a different format. So, yeah, all of that.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, every time I come to one of these meetings, I realize what an amazing institution TMCC is, and thank you, everyone, for your presentations and for the wonderful, I love the agenda, the focus. I think that is fantastic. It puts, it just direction. I think that's absolutely superb. For myself, I'm very excited about the quality possibility, and I'd certainly like to offer my 25 quality engineers sitting in Carson City to help you in any way we can. Our VP came from McDonnell Douglas, is one of the leaders in QA Thought, so whatever we can do to help in your study and to see what others are doing, I'd be happy to. And again, I'm also very excited about the smart cities because, again, we are going through cybersecurity authentication with the Department of Defense. We need all the people that can understand all these things. And also, it's my understanding, and there's nobody here from EDON, but there's a lot of work. We've had like 35 companies come in that are working in the blockchain area, and anything we can do to support the IT area in those. I think we're not going to be Silicon Valley, but we're seeing this coming in, and that is a particular profession where they don't care if you even have a high school diploma. It's a certification that they're looking for rather than the four-year degree. So I think that's something that we certainly could look at. So thank you.
Thank you.
I guess it starts with your opening around the apprenticeship program being expanded so vastly. That really interests me. And the notion that it really, I think, breaks down some of the barriers between industry and education for new models. Again, kind of borrowing from John Madole, you know, about teaching skills versus necessarily going for a degree. And I find that very interesting. So I'm really curious to see how that gets implemented, because you typically think of apprenticeship as strictly trades, but to open it up to healthcare and these other industries, I think is really interesting. And then Elmar introduced me to a friend of his a couple weeks ago who is working with Nevada Startup, and he's a former technology guru from Silicon Valley, and he really made me understand how everyone is a technology business, whether you're in gaming or drones or you have a platform, and there are skills required that I don't think, well, I shouldn't say this, because maybe good things are happening at TMCC that are really preparing those network administrators, PC techs, all the hardware people that are trying to keep us going. So I'm interested to see how that evolves also.
Susan Schilling for the record. I loved today's meeting. I thought the agenda was awesome, how it takes you back to the strategic goals. It helps keep us focused. It helps keep everyone else focused. I love the presentations. I just get so energized when I leave here and I go back and I make everyone's life terrible. But I wanted to give a special thank you that law enforcement is listed under smart city technology. So that's just wonderful because my profession is not as glamorous as it used to be because of social media and what have you. So it's nice to see that. So I'll take that as a feather in my cap today. Thank you.
Mike Holmes, I'm already in the choir. I'm a professor here, so I'm pretty aware of everything that goes on. It's nice to see that there's such a strong commitment and passionate approach from those of you in the community for engagement and support of the college and everything that we're doing from a instruction level and then also workforce development and everything else.
Thank you.
Gloria Chavez. I'm really glad that I was the one who got to come in place of Kim today because it's very interesting to see, for me, all the projects that are in place to kind of push TMCC even farther than it is now, and to see how it's growing and everything that's going on behind the scenes to make sure that it continues to be a great institution. So I really loved the capital planning projects, but also, like others were saying, the nursing program. And then also including those research opportunities into different classes. I think it's really cool to see that everybody's working towards it, so I appreciate that.
Cheryl War, I represent the Nevada Faculty Alliance, and I'm on the counseling faculty at TMCC. I've been there for 33 years in August, off and on. And it's really interesting for me to see how TMCC's evolved. When I first came in 1985, we had 6,000 students, and our technical programs were pretty archaic. And I remember one time we had a group of German engineers that came from the automotive industry, and they toured our automotive center. And I was really embarrassed because I've spent a lot of time in Germany, and I've toured their VW and Audi, and I was like, oh. And then we started to change that, and now we've started to change other technologies on campus to keep up with industry, and I think that's pretty exciting. And I think the presentations you saw is a great reflection of the faculty that we have. We have excellent faculty. We're a teaching institution, and our faculty really care about students. So thank you.
Heather Comstally, I am classified staff and the classified president. My takeaway from this is I appreciate the innovative, that we're not trying to put a student in a box, that we are meeting the students at wherever they are, whether it's their apprenticeship. That's amazing because not everybody's meant to go and get a 2-year or a 4-year degree. They need those technical skills. But the education with the growing economy, it has to be there. So meeting their needs and making sure that we don't exclude anybody. So I appreciate the innovativeness.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I have one quick takeaway.
Sure.
I learned that phages are fun.
Last item on the agenda, is there any further public comment? Hearing none. I want to thank again everyone who's here today, the members of the ISC, our outstanding faculty, Gloria Chavez for representing the SGA today, the presenters. Elena, there was a lot of work going into these presentations, and we very much appreciate that. I wish you all a very nice, very good weekend, and see you again soon.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.